time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
The president will start a war with Iran because he has absolutely no ability to negotiate. He's weak and he's ineffective.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a special Sunday evening edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hello. And that was, of course, AI.
Yes, exactly. Right. Yeah, exactly. Wow, we got a big crowd in here to start things off. 1,200 strong in the YouTube chat, 635 on Rumble. Wow, something must be going on. Not much of a slow news weekend.
Yeah,
wow.
What the hell? What the hell? Some reason they want to know what we have to say about it.
Exactly. Yes. Lots going on tonight. Want to start by wishing all the dissident dads out there very happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to my dad. Happy Father's Day to my 3 beautiful boys. So all the dissident dads out there all around the world, wherever you are, this one's for you guys. Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
Yes.
And for those of you who are bounders, happy Bounders Day.
Happy Bounders Day. That's right. Russell celebrates Happy Bounders Day to all who celebrate. That's right. There was one other thing that I wanted to mention at the outset. Obviously we will be switching over to Rumble for the final 2 segments of the program tonight. We'll also be holding any Rumble rants or super chats that might get us thrown off the air until we get to that side.
We got 3 over there.
That's true. We got 3 over there. We have 3 over there tonight because I forgot. Yeah, we moved one of yours there too. So, yeah, we have quite an epic show tonight. Tonight is going to be quite the barn burner. Plus, we do have the patron Q&A after the show on Rumble. So we have quite a bit to get to, quite a lot to get to. I'm going to do my best.
We will be covering Caitlyn Jenner's effort to fight for the only gay-friendly state where they only throw the Palestinian gays off the roofs.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yes.
Otherwise, you're an Israeli gay. You're good.
Right. Exactly.
You're good. I was going to mention, I saw the picture of Dorian Gray where Sarah Snook, who played Shiv on Succession, basically does a one-person show, 26 characters. She was brilliant. So if you're in New York, check it out. And look who got a
I got a little selfie there too.
Got a little selfie with her, yeah.
Awesome.
And she's an Aussie, man. This is what I keep saying. See, most of you don't know because unlike South Americans, unlike Latin Americans, unlike Asians, the Aussies pretend to be us. So we don't realize they're taking our jobs.
Right, exactly.
They pretend to be Americans. She's another one. That could have been an American doing a one-woman picture of Dorian Gray on
They should have raided the theater.
They should have. ICE should have
an ICE
been
raid.
Yeah. I called ICE. They didn't show up.
They didn't show up.
I got the autograph instead.
Yeah,
but that was my way of trying to keep her there, but they didn't get there.
That's right. They had their hands tied. All right. So, hey, look, we got a lot to get to tonight. So we are going to be up for a while. So strap in. I'm going to do my best to get through the show tonight. Although I got to say, I am feeling a little bit under the weather. You know what it is? My Trump derangement syndrome has been acting up lately. You know, I've a pretty bad case of Trump derangement syndrome. You know, a lot of people in our audience. Well, they warned us about that. You know, they warned us that we just weren't giving this administration a chance, and that, you know, they were going to challenge the deep state and dismantle the military-industrial complex and bring peace on earth. And so the fact that that hasn't been happening has filled me with, you know, just irrational anger at Donald Trump. And so I will do my best to overcome that this evening for all of you, our wonderful audience. All right, folks, let's get started. Let's jump right in. We all know what happens over the weekend. Israel strikes Iran's nuclear sites and kills top generals. Iran retaliates with missile barrages. So here comes the post 9/11 media slant. What this headline should read is Israel launches completely unprovoked strike on Iran, killing several civilians, 128 over the first 2 days, Friday, Saturday. That's now up to over 400 casualties. But the AP frames it, they struck their nuclear sites and their generals, and Iran retaliates with missile barrages. Welcome to 2003, everybody. I hope you're ready. Israel launched blistering attacks on the heart of Iran's nuclear and military structure Friday, deploying warplanes and drones previously smuggled into the country to assault key facilities and kill top generals and scientists. Israel asserted the barrage was necessary before its adversary got any closer to building an atomic weapon, although experts and the U.S. government have assessed that Iran was actively working on such a weapon before the strikes. You know what they were also talking about? A deal. We were also amid negotiations. It doesn't get more unprovoked than that, folks, to strike while diplomatic talks are ongoing. Iran retaliated by firing waves of ballistic missiles at Israel, where explosions flared in the skies over Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and shook the buildings below. The Israeli military urged civilians already rattled by the earlier wave of missiles to head to shelter as missiles damaged homes and killed 2 people. Once again, over Friday and Saturday, over 100 Iranian civilians were killed. That number is now up over 400. But the AP makes a point to not mention that at all. Yeah. They mention the 2 Israeli casualties. Like I said, folks, it's going to be a long ride here. So I hope you guys are ready.
Worthy and unworthy victims.
That's right. Exactly. So we have to play this again. This is a relevant piece of video. Most of you have seen this already, so bear with us. But it bears a repeat viewing. Here is General Wesley Clark in 2007 revealing that in the days and months after 9/11, he was informed by top brass at the Bush administration that the plan was to topple 7 countries in 5 years, ending, of course, with Iran.
After 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me, and one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They've just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, he said, I just got this down from upstairs," meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran."
Finishing off with Iran, that's right. The only problem, of course, is that Iraq, the first on the list, didn't exactly go as planned. And here's Donald Rumsfeld ginning up support for the Iraq war, promising that they have what? Weapons of mass destruction. Does this sound familiar in 2025 when we were told Iran is just a week away from a nuclear bomb? Let's see.
Have weapons of mass destruction. We know they have weapons of mass destruction.
We know
they have active programs. There isn't any debate about it. So the idea that if you had an appropriate inspection regime, that they'd come back and say you were wrong is so far beyond anyone's imagination that it's not something I think about.
Wasn't beyond Scott Ritter's imagination. Wasn't beyond his imagination. That's for sure. But Donald Rumsfeld assured us now famously that the Iraq war could last 6 days, 6 weeks. I doubt 6 months. Very, very confident that all would go well. But of course, we all know it did not go well. And if you look at George W. Bush's job approval rating right after 9/11, right up there at 90%, look at a steady decline as that war in Iraq that was supposed to last 6 days, 6 weeks, maybe 6 months, dragged on year after year after year in horribly bloody fashion. And he left office with just a 25% job approval rating. So Obama wins, and of course Obama does a lot of horrible things to expand the military footprint, but one thing he does do that would complicate that list that General Wesley Clark was reading off is he reaches an Iran nuclear deal. Limits on fuel would lessen with time. That brings us to 2015, when Donald Trump takes his ride down the escalator, and over the next year, he has this very unlikely ascendancy to the presidency. According to MSNBC, that ascendancy came with the help of Russia, which is not exactly true. Close, but no cigar. No, he was actually colluding with Israel. There was a huge write-up by James Bamford in The Nation magazine, the Trump campaign's collusion with Israel. It even got the cover story on that print. The Candidate and the Spy was the name of that edition of The Nation magazine. And so here is James Bamford on Democracy Now! In 2023 talking about how, yes, Trump was aided and abetted in 2016 by a foreign power. It just wasn't the foreign power that the media thought it was, or rather, wasn't the foreign power that the media wanted to admit it was. They knew full well that the collusion was between Trump and Israel. And, of course, they did not collude with Trump to win him the White House for no reason. There were strings attached. What do you think those might be? Well, let's take a look at this. A few minutes, but it's definitely worth watching, because I know probably most of you haven't seen this. This story got very little coverage at the time. Why do you think? Because it's an indictment of both the intelligence agencies and the media, but here it is.
And why we know a lot. Talk about what happened, why we know a lot about Russia, or at least a lot is made of in going after Russia, saying it tried to overthrow the 2016 election or spin it for Trump. What actually is documented here is Israel's involvement. And yet Mueller report, Senate Intelligence Committee, it looks like they knew, but just didn't want to talk about it.
Well, exactly. The documents I got are from the FBI. There are the FBI affidavit about this. There's documents, numerous quotes from the secret agent, Israeli secret agent sent by Netanyahu, talking about the PM, which the FBI agent indicates was the prime minister, and lays out a months-long plot, basically from May of 2016 till the fall of 2016, right up to the election. This was investigated by the Mueller team. It was the Mueller team, the Mueller FBI agents, who actually got a search warrant for the secret agent's communications. And that's what these documents are. These are the basis of that investigation from the FBI and the Mueller team. But all this was redacted from the final Mueller report. All they focused on was Russia, and in the end, they basically gave Russia a bill of health. They said that there was no collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign. they left out a little bit from the report, and that's that there was collusion, but it was from Netanyahu and Israel to the Trump campaign, and it went on for months and months, and involved providing the Trump campaign with secret access to the information that the Russians were picking up from Hillary Clinton's campaign and the DNC. In other words, the Israelis, they have a very, very sophisticated eavesdropping organization, Unit 8200. It's their equivalent of the NSA. And they were eavesdropping on the Russians and eavesdropping on Wikigate, and Julian Assange, and they were picking up all this information that the Russians were getting from the Clinton campaign and the DNC. And rather than giving it to the President of the United States, to Obama, which is what an ally is supposed to do, especially one that gets $4 billion a year, they instead were giving it to the Trump campaign, secretly giving it to the Trump campaign in order to get concessions.
In order to get concessions. So a lot he said there. We're going to take a quick game break there. So this reporting is sourced from text messages between the Israeli liaison and Roger Stone. Now, Roger Stone, a dirty trickster going back decades all the way to the Nixon years, very intelligent and mischievous political operative. And so he was getting Russian dirt. It's not that the Russians weren't gathering dirt. It's that the Russians were not the ones colluding with the Trump campaign. The Israelis were taking the Russian information and giving it to Roger Stone. And there's no doubt in my mind that Roger Stone, evil genius that he is, knew that as long as he went through Israel, he would not be caught. He would get away with it because he knew that the media, nor any of our bought and paid for members of government, are ever going to want to admit that Israel meddles illegally in our electoral process. So he figures, hey, I can get Russian dirt through Israel. If I get it directly from the Russians, they're going to blow the whistle on that because Russia bad. If I go through Israel, I'm going to walk out of this squeaky clean. And that's what happened. He ended up getting away with it. Now, of course, Israel did not do this for free. So they demanded some concessions in exchange for helping Donald Trump win the presidency. Let's see what those concessions were.
From Trump when he became president, and hopefully they were going to help make him president.
Let's talk about that moment, why this was so critical for Netanyahu. Talk about the quartet, the direction Obama and the quartet were going in, and why Netanyahu wanted Trump to win.
Well, a key reason he wanted Trump to win was because Trump vowed to throw out the nuclear agreement with Iran.
See, it's starting to make a little sense, is it now, folks? They helped him win so he would throw out the nuclear agreement with Iran. And why might he want to do that? Well, I think we got our answer this past weekend, did we not? But that's not all.
That the Obama administration worked very hard on and was very useful to the United States. And Netanyahu didn't like it. He didn't want it. He wanted Trump to get rid of it, and Trump was planning to do that. But he wanted a second thing, too. The Obama administration was putting a great deal of pressure on Netanyahu to work out an agreement with the Palestinians over Jerusalem, which was divided. The final agreement over Jerusalem was going to be divided between the Palestinians and Israel. Israel wanted, Netanyahu wanted the entire city to be Israeli. And so they were putting pressure on the Trump campaign saying, look, this is what we want, and we can help Trump get elected, but we have to have basically have to have an agreement that he's going to help us on this issue over the sovereignty of Jerusalem. And in the very end, that's what happened. There was a secret meeting, or at least a private meeting, in the Trump penthouse in New York, just between Netanyahu and Trump. And after it was over, Trump came out, and that's what he said. He said that if I'm elected president, I'm going to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem and declare Jerusalem the capital of Israel. So the Israelis got what they wanted, and Trump got what he wanted, and the American public was screwed in the meantime.
Yeah, seems like that's the way it all went down. Sure seems like that's the way it all went down. Trump was propelled to the presidency, not by the Russians, but by the Israelis in exchange for those two pretty big favors. Agitate with the Palestinians by moving the embassy to Jerusalem, and, of course, agitate with the Iranians by scrapping that pesky nuclear deal, which is going to make it very hard to justify a war against that seventh country that the United States always had on its list. So Trump's first term comes and goes. He was supposed to win a second, but the blue team of the New World Order got their way with the pandemic, and they got Biden in. But during what should have been Trump's second term, of course, October 7th happens. And in February of 2024, this great article was published in the American Conservative, of all outlets, saying, beware the Iran Pearl Harbor moments. That's right, the Iran Pearl Harbor moment. And the subtitle, the font is a little small, but it says, the horrors of October 7th are being subordinated to a foreign adventure project decades in the making. Wow. Based and red-pilled from the American Conservatives' Kelly Bokar Viejos. Not bad there. So what Pearl Harbor is she referring to? Well, she's referring to the previous Pearl Harbor of September 11th, which was warned about in advance in a redacted but largely declassified memo that the State Department received in the months leading up to 9/11. Bin Laden determined to strike in the United States. That got ignored by accident for no reason. Of course, we all know that. Just as Israel ignored knowledge of the October 7th plan going back more than a year before the date of the events. Again, by accident for no reason, I'm sure. The American Conservative writes, in the year 2000, the Project for a New American Century issued a report that proposed establishing a new U.S.-led security perimeter across the globe to protect Western interests and perform the constabulary duties associated with shaping the security environment in critical regions. See, that's how they got away with it, because no one knows what the word constabulary means. You just use, $64 words, and you can get away with whatever you want.
Does that mean vote Trump?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That's what that means. Constabulary. Vote Trump.
The report, Rebuilding America's Defenses, which suggested billions more in the Pentagon budget annually for reimagining military capabilities across the forces, including nuclear and space, was based in part on the defense policy guidance crafted by Paul Wolfowitz and Dick Cheney during the George H.W. Bush administration, quote, for maintaining U.S. preeminence, precluding the rise of a great power rival, and shaping the international security order in line with American principles and interests. The report noted that the process of transformation that PNAC, Project for a New American Century, envisioned, even if it brings revolutionary change, is likely to be a long one, absent some catastrophic and catalyzing events like a new Pearl Harbor. Yes, this was pre-9/11, of course. They said we cannot fast-track this process absent a catastrophic and catalyzing event. Yes, folks, this is all real. It's all real. PNAC, which was founded by Bill Kristol and Robert Kagan, had been actively lobbying to remove Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein from power, got its Pearl Harbor a year later. Within 2 years of the September 11, 2001 attacks, the U.S. invaded Iraq, saw Hussein executed, and was well on its way to fulfilling at least one top-line goal from rebuilding America's defenses to fight and decisively win multiple simultaneous major theater wars. Of course, as we just went over, and as most of us know, the winning part never happened. Yet the centrifugal force that was the neoconservative project, which placed several of its founders and signatories at the levers of political and military power inside the George W. Bush administration, George Jr., Cheney, Wolfowitz, Don Rumsfeld, Elliott Abrams, Paula Dobryansky, and Scooter Libby, was able to perpetuate a global war on terror and a U.S. military footprint across the greater Middle East and Africa that remains to this day. Why revisit this now? Well, you got your answer this weekend once again. Despite their discredited handiwork overseas, vividly reflected, in the vulnerability of 3,400 U.S. troops left over from counter-terror operations against ISIS, a militant group created in the vacuum from PNAC's vaunted Iraq regime change, neoconservatives and their aspirations are still at the very center of today's foreign policy debates, and they really, really want the U.S. to go to war with Iran. You have to figure out which Iranian leaders are making the decisions, and you take them out. The GOP presidential candidate Nikki Haley said following the drone attack on 3 U.S. Army troops stationed in Jordan on January 29th. That was 2024. This wasn't a one-off. Haley, who shares mega donors with AIPAC, has been neocon friendly since her days in the Trump administration when she helped kill the Iran nuclear deal. Don't forget, Nikki Haley did serve under Trump in his first term. Easy to forget that since she recently became hostile to him when she thought she could beat him for the nomination. The Biden administration may choose not to retaliate in a big enough way as to set off World War III. All signs this week thankfully point to an effort on both sides, Washington and Tehran, seeking to tamp down the prospects. This is no thanks to this pernicious army of the Iran-obsessed who implicitly regard the October 7th Hamas attacks in Israel as the Pearl Harbor for the final confrontation, if not the regime change they have long been seeking. That's right. And what are they going to use to get it? Well, the same line they used to get us into Iraq. Weapons of mass destruction. Here's a long history of the lie that Iran is just around the corner from getting a nuclear weapon.
Months to enrich enough nuclear material for a single nuclear weapon.
United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken is warning that Iran is potentially just months away or less from nuclear breakpoint.
Iran is 2 months away from a nuclear weapon, and it's a victory to get them 1 year away?
Iran could be less than a month away from building a nuclear weapon.
I mean, Netanyahu has made 2 tough-talking TV appearances, saying that Iran is just months away from making a nuclear bomb.
What is important to understand is that you have to dismantle the entire terror empire, and especially before its main practitioners, the terror states of Iran and Iraq, acquire nuclear weapons. And this, I think, has been a wake-up call from hell. It is telling us you have the power now to act.
All right. As Caitlin Johnston says, with good reason, there's absolutely no excuse for buying into the war propaganda about Iran after what we all saw with Iraq. Oh my God, nuclear weapons? Shut up, idiots. Yes, amen. If you're a grown adult with internet access still swallowing this load of bull spunk in the year 2025, you're either stupid or evil. Hear, hear. Now, what about Donald Trump, though? He's supposed to be America first. He's supposed to be the peace president. So what does he mean, America first? This sure doesn't seem America first. Well, according to the Atlantic magazine, Trump says he now decides what America first means. So shout out to Adam on Twitter for finding this. So when the author of this piece writes, when I caught Donald Trump by phone this morning, the president wanted to make one thing clear. America first means whatever he says it does. This is a quote from Trump. Well, considering that I'm the one that developed America first, and considering that the term wasn't used until I came along, I think I'm the one that decides that, Trump told me. For those people who say they want peace, you can't have peace if Iran has a nuclear weapon. So for all those wonderful people who don't want to do anything about Iran having a nuclear weapon, that's not peace. Oh, talk about a rug pull. I call this the biggest scam in modern political history, perhaps surpassing even Obama's hope and change. That's exactly what this was. Going back to that escalator ride in 2015 when we thought, and I include myself, I speak for myself in this, thinking that Donald Trump was the more anti-war choice that fall. Because, of course, Hillary Clinton had been agitating for a war with Iran via Syria and Russia by calling for a no-fly zone. And we thought, that's crazy. That's insane. Donald Trump, for all his faults, isn't going to do that. Well, no, he's going to get you there the other way. They presented you with a false choice in 2016. Just like George Carlin said, Americans are made to feel free via the exercise of meaningless choices. You don't have real choices in this country. We never had a real choice. Donald Trump, it is my contention at this point, was an Israeli op from day one. He was propelled to the presidency to shred the Iran deal in the first term, move the embassy in the first term, to get tensions escalating, and then in the second term, October 7th, and now the subsequent genocide and the expansion of the Greater Israel Project, culminated, of course, in the war with Iran that very influential people in our government have wanted, not since George W. Bush, since George H.W. Bush. Since George H.W. Bush. And Donald Trump was just a chump and a pawn in this game all along, as were everyone who thought he represented something different. And I'm not saying this to lecture people. I thought he represented something different. I never loved what he represented. That's why I never supported him. I never voted for him. But I thought he was a disruptor. I thought he was something different. No, he's just getting you to World War III, a slightly different route. That's all this was. That's all this was. This was a giant scam, a giant boondoggle. And yeah, I know the U.S. had nothing to do with the attack on Iran tonight. If we're attacked in any way, shape, or form by Iran, the full strength and might of the U.S. armed forces will come down on you at levels never seen before. However, we can easily get a deal done between Iran and Israel and end this bloody conflict. There's the talking out of both sides of your mouth. All it'll take at this point is for American troops to get attacked somehow, perhaps by Iran, perhaps by Israel saying, oops, Iran hit you. What are you going to do now? Seems like a pretty volatile situation. I know Ken Klippenstein, Reuters reporting Trump vetoed an Israeli plan to assassinate Iran's leader. Oh, look, he tried to stop it. He really is. He really is the peace candidate. Well, let's not forget this, folks. Axios reporting Trump was publicly pretending to oppose an Israeli attack on Iran. Two Israeli officials claimed to Axios that Trump and his aides were only pretending to oppose an Israeli attack in public and didn't express opposition in private. We had a clear U.S. green light, one claimed. The goal, they say, was to convince Iran that no attack was imminent and make sure Iranians on Israel's target list wouldn't move to new locations. Once again, they assassinated them in their homes. Netanyahu's aides even briefed Israeli reporters that Trump had tried to put the brakes on an Israeli strike in a call on Monday, when in reality, the call dealt with coordination ahead of the attack, Israeli officials now say. The Americans, of course, deny this. You say, who do you believe? The Israelis are pretty massive liars, comparable to just about everyone on earth, except, of course, for us. We lie a lot, too. And given the events of the past few days, it sure seems like they're telling the truth in this instance, that we had their back all along, and all of this posturing was just bullshit to lull Iran into thinking that a deal was possible throughout these various rounds of talks. So there you have it. That's the timeline of how we got here. And the only way to stop this now is for everyone to stand up and say in one voice, we are not dying for Israel. We are not sending our children to die for Israel. Period. The American public is clearly against this, as we're going to learn later in the show. MAGA is very divided on this, with a majority of the rank and file being against this, obviously. And if we simply say we're not going, policy can change at that point. Notice ISIS stopped raiding workplaces. Now, they say it's because the employers got in Trump's ear. That's bullshit. The employers have been scared about this for years. That's why Trump backed them on the H-1B visas. The reason ICE is stopping raiding workplaces is because they can't have Los Angeles everywhere, right? They just can't have that. That leads to a complete shutdown of the system. So when people get out in the street and they make their voices heard, that we're simply not happening. Simply not happening. If you're in the army and there's a war with Iran and they send you there, you should not go. If there's a draft, you should not go. They can't lock everybody up. We're not dying for Israel. Our children are not dying for Israel. This supersedes everything else. This is now a global emergency, decades in the making. If this does not stop, the results are going to be catastrophic beyond your imagination. Iraq was a horror. This will be much, much, much worse. And if you don't believe me, read Tucker Carlson's Twitter feed. He says that exact thing, and he's right. This will be much worse, much worse. And so we all just have to say in one voice, whether you're MAGA, whether you're a liberal, whether you're a communist, whether you're this and that, no war with Iran. That's the only thing that could stop this at this point, and it can stop it. It can stop it. But it's going to take everyone getting on the same page right now.
Yeah, what we really need is for Rachel Maddow to go on the air and do one of her squinty eye, smarty pants monologues about how Trump is an Israeli op. This is beyond partisanship. This is beyond
exactly,
Democrat and Republican. If the presidency is an Israeli op, that is so huge.
Right.
She needs to do one of those to bring the libs on board. I must say, I have been heartened. We have actually gotten quite a few comments saying, you know, I thought you fellas just had that there Trump derangement syndrome, but you know what? You're all right in my book.
Yep.
So a lot of folks coming on over. And yes, when it comes to nuclear irradiation, everything else kind of goes out the window, guys.
Right.
We need to come together. We need to come together. You know what? Let's hold off on fighting about whether Sue Storm should be the leader of the Fantastic Four, right? That can wait. That can wait. We can all get together, woke, anti-woke, as the great Roger Waters said in his anti-nuclear war song, "Ashes and diamonds, foe and friend, we were all equal in the end," because that's what's going to end up happening to us if we do not set aside our differences to prevent nuclear war. We always thought it was going to end this way. We didn't. I mean, the Trump, not the World War III part, but that MAGA was going to collapse because it was very clear from Trump signaling, from his actual words, and from the collection of fruitcakes and amoral assholes, warmongers, losers, and maniacs that he put in his cabinet, that this was exactly what was going to happen. It's just kind of amazing how quickly it did. And this is something we have always said. Unlike the libs, MAGA will challenge their leadership and the narratives of their leaders. And you're seeing that. We'll see that in the segment later. Like the libs, it does not matter. I always said this. You could have pictures of Hillary Clinton with a toddler under each arm running out of a pizzeria, and they'd say that she was having a pizza party for grandkids. That would not matter what evidence you showed a lib that would indict their leaders, their most beloved sainted figures. There's absolutely no way they would ever turn on them. It really, I mean, we did show them evidence. You show them Citibank picked Obama's cabinet. Cat stare, as you say.
Genocide under Biden.
Genocide under Biden. None of it ever made any difference. Kamala Harris locking up people for smoking pot, laughing about locking up parents for truancy, fighting to keep a man from having a DNA test that would exonerate him. None of it ever made an impression on the libs. MAGA, yeah, man. I mean, they've turned pretty quick. Like the only ones I see now supporting this are the influencers whose bread and butter depends on them somehow selling this. Because to turn around now and turn on the Trump administration, you got to remember, as we demonstrated in the Tim Dillon segment, a lot of these people are getting paid the other way. They're getting paid from the deep state. They're getting paid by the people behind Trump. They can't just say, well, I'll shift to my audience taste. Bringing along the audience is their business model, but the money's not coming from the audience. The money is coming from people you're not even seeing with a lot of these MAGA influencers. Otherwise, they would just turn around, right? And they would say, what the hell? This isn't what they're working so hard to try to reconcile their audience to this. Why do you do that? What do you do that for? You do that because you're not really somebody in the business of speaking truth with an audience. You're in the business of propagandizing a base to get them to go along with an agenda without that audience really being aware of who you work for. That is the case with a lot of these people, as we have seen more and more. And again, very quickly, within 5 months, a lot of people are getting exposed. So yeah, man, this is a time we need to all set things aside, come together, and work to stop this war.
Yeah. 100%. And, just so everybody understands, there's no excusing this. There's no rationalizing this. There's no, 5D chessing this. No.
No.
This is a horror. Decades in the making. That's what I mean. That's why I did that whole history, to show you that this has all essentially been orchestrated, and that Trump was really not the wrench in the machine that a lot of people thought he was. If he was, Israel would not have chosen him over Hillary Clinton, of all people, who I'm sure had some nefarious tricks up her own sleeve. But,
sure.
But yeah, well, as we know, Syria was going to be her angle into this.
All
right.
Yep.
But Trump's was Israel's. And it makes sense when you think about it, that after the debacle that was Iraq, they weren't going to be able to rally support in this country to attack Iran. So what do? We agitate in Israel, right? And we get them to attack Iran. And then, hey, they're our key ally, so we're going to have to help them. And when it gets dire, we're going to have to send our boys in. And what we have to, like I said, in one voice say is no. As Caitlin Johnston said, there's no excuse. There's no excuse for Donald Trump, and there's no excuse for any of us. There's no excuse for anyone in this country who is old enough to remember those post 9/11 years or capable of looking it up and reading about it. You're going to see a lot of things resemble that time. Chris Cuomo, his monologue, we might do that on Jimmy's show tomorrow. We're hosting tomorrow. Scott Horton just did an interview with one of the other male bimbos at News Nation, I think it was. Just unbelievably stupid talking points the guy's throwing at him. Mm-hmm. The media always tries to manufacture consent for this. They will try again. We have to learn our lesson. We cannot tolerate stupidity amongst each other right now. We have to be very firm and supportive, but firm with each other. I do not want you. I don't want to hear anybody saying, well, but do you think they should have a nuclear weapon? No. Stop. That's nonsense. Nonsense. They're probably lying about them being right around the corner from a nuclear weapon. If they're not lying, the reason they are close to getting a nuclear weapon now, if that's true, and I don't think it is, but if it is because Donald Trump shredded the Iran deal at Israel's behest in exchange for helping him win in 2016. So either way, it's our fault and instigated by the United States and Israel, meaning there is no excuse to buy any of this bullshit. No war with Iran. That is the line, period. I don't want to hear any bullshit from anybody about anything. That's it. That is the page we all have to be on, because this is not a game at this point. This is real, as we see.
It is very different from the Bush years in that there has been almost a quarter century of erosion in faith in institutions since then. People, even though it was post-Watergate, I mean, you're certainly well past the years where people just assumed that their institutions were not corrupt. It was still a time when George Bush could go stand on the rubble with the bullhorn, say, the people who knock down these towers will hear from us, and then follow that up by telling everyone to go out shopping.
Right.
Without getting enormous backlash. Remember, you really didn't have social media. You really didn't have another outlet of conversation. You really couldn't get around the gatekeepers. The almost universal willingness to fall in line behind George Bush and the almost absolute unquestioning tone of the entire culture, left, right, center, everybody, to go along with this shit. I mean, there were dissenters, but people called them traitors.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
You're being a traitor.
Oh, yeah.
That's different from now. That is different. Like, at this point, no one trusts the government. And the Democrats certainly, they saw George Bush as the way they saw Reagan, as too stupid for the job, but they didn't see him as fundamentally unfit in the way that they see Trump. Like, you're not getting the Democrats, except for the ones who are Zionist first, to rally behind Trump. They're not. That's why the Democrats have been so quiet. They don't know what the fuck to do with this, because they're all Zionists, and this is what Israel wants. But they can't do what they did with George Bush, right? We're standing.
You're talking about the
behind our
Democrats
president.
in Congress, right? So you have Hakeem Jeffries putting out a very mealy-mouthed statement. Well, talk about a take that tastes like milk.
I'm talking about Democrats in general as well. Like, they all rallied behind Bush at that time. Right?
Yeah.
Well, we set that aside. Politics ends at the water's edge, right? All that shit. They can't do that with Trump. They just can't, except the ones who are Zionist first and foremost. Before they're Americans, they're Zionist. And I would say most Zionists are that way. So the Zionists will go with him. The elected officials who have to think about getting votes beyond Zionists, they really don't know how to handle this.
Well, that's what I mean. And at the rank and file, most Democratic voters, I wouldn't say are hostile to Israel, but I don't think they're afraid to speak out against the war now.
Yeah,
like
but
I think you'll get that pretty broad based.
Well, that's a difference. Yeah. That's a difference, and they're not. They just cannot rally behind Trump. They just can't. That ship sailed. That ship sailed the night that he bombed Syria, and all the press basically signaled to him, "We'll give you the George Bush treatment if you stop calling us the fake news media," and he didn't take the olive branch.
Right. Exactly. All righty. Michael Castillo says, "Good evening, gentlemen. Oh, first let's take care of some business. 4,600 strong in the YouTube chat. 25. Wow. Look at that. 1,100 likes as well. We're coming up on 20,000 total views for the YouTube stream in total, not even an hour in. So please smash that like button. Let's get an even bigger
we got
crowd
6K total.
in here. Yep, 6K total between all of the platforms. Michael Castillo says, "Good evening, gentlemen. I'm watching the BB Files, which is banned throughout the world. I rented Tantura, but I cannot watch it. Let's expose these people. Free Palestine."
Why can't you watch it?
Is it just you can't watch it because it's too...
you can't handle it?
Yeah, is it too much for you? I know it's free on YouTube,
it's fucked
right?
up, man.
Yeah. Psychological War 1369 became a fan. Thank you for becoming a member. Appreciate that. Michael Castillo says, "Russell, I found the synagogue which has Bugsy Siegel on its wall of worship. I'm getting back in the New York groove. You two are dope as hell. Don't ever forget that." Well, thank you.
Yeah, that's on the Lower East Side in like the last Jewish section. Although the last time I actually went through there, the remaining Jewish population, it was like the mummy. You felt like you touched them, they were going to crumble like old parchment. So I don't know if they're still there now.
265005 says, "I've said it 10 years ago and I'll say it again today. MAGA is, in its vast majority, a collection of politically incorrect Bush voters." Well, yeah, it looks that way now. Michael Castillo, "Speaking of Israel, I looked at KISS tickets in Las Vegas and they were close to $1,000. Wow, that is pretty up there. I am. Thanks for the $20 super sticker. French Laundry, thanks for the $4.99.
Not like back in the day when KISS stood for something.
That's right. This is my dream. Thanks for the $9.99. Has anyone else heard about Netanyahu fleeing to Greece for safety? Yes, he did. I read on Jerusalem Post. He did. He did. That's what a great statesman he is. He starts a war and then leaves. Celebrate good times. Come on, says China. Thank you, China Shill. Thank you, China Shill. Michael Castillo says, "What do Donald Trump and Newt Gingrich have in common? They're both chicken hawks." Thank you for that. Appreciate that very much. Killer Hitton says, "Sorry, dirtbags, I can't make it tonight. Got a chess match lined up with Max von Sydow. End times are busty." Thank you, Killer Hitton. Appreciate that. White smoke seen billowing over Tel Aviv, which signifies that a new Epstein has been chosen. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. 5D chess requires the deepest feint before the true gambit unfolds. Trust the process. Orange Messiah will deliver us. Thank you. Eric Rousseau says, "If Kamala won, we'd be having brunch genocide with avocado toast." Thank you for that. At the rate this news is unfolding, have you considered a 24-hour DD news channel? Yeah, that would be...
that's what we need.
That's what we need. That's right. Shout out to the dads at Palantir. Says, "Get up, King. It's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it." Thank you very much. All right. Let's move on to segment number 2.
All right. Well, the media has been covering itself in glory, as you would expect, in the way they've been covering this. U.S. and UK media coddles a rogue state. The headlines normalize Israel's egregious strike, not even mention of their lack of legal justification or strikes in residential areas. Media frames development as if it were normal. This is not just trash, it's criminal. And here you see somebody's news feed here. Israel bracing for retaliation after striking Iran. Israel said it struck dozens of targets across Iran, aiming to cripple Tehran's nuclear program. Israel says it strikes targeted nuclear sites in Iran, as U.S. says it is not involved. Israel attacked Iran, Israel's defense minister said, raising fear of an all-out war between the two powerful militaries. Now, needless to say, if this had been the other way around, these headlines would not be so cautious, so measured, and so tacitly approving of the Israeli action. They're taking a rational action and bracing for the consequences. Here we have the BBC, CBS, and NBC maximize attacks on Israel, but minimize attacks on Iran in the same headline. Here's the BBC. Iran launches new wave of missiles at Israel as Israeli Air Force strikes targets in Tehran. That's how they do it. Iran launches missiles at Israel, and some hit Tel Aviv as Israel attacks Iranian nuclear sites and commanders.
They blew up apartment buildings. They killed children.
Yeah.
They killed civilians. What the hell are you talking about?
Right. And the Iranian attacks are the only ones of real consequence, right? And there's no strategic purpose to the Iranian attacks. NBC, Iran fires missiles at Israel in escalating conflict over nuclear site attacks. And as we will see on the Rumble side, we finally got to see where these Iron Dome missiles come from. And it kind of looks like all of Tel Aviv is being used as a human shield. But we will see that later. Piers Morgan covering himself in glory like he does. I've been increasingly critical of Israel's war strategy in Gaza. It only took me 19, 20 months to notice that it was a genocide after talking to basically every legitimate expert on earth about it and having them lay it out for me in very clear terms. It only took me about 20 months to get there. But given the IAEA report exposing Iran's imminent nuclear threat and the Iran regime's stated intent to wipe out Israel, plus support for Hamas, Houthi, Hezbollah terrorism, Israel's preemptive strike seems justified. And that's why
it's just amazing. It's fucking amazing. Maybe I have PTSD. We were in talks with them. Our government, not Israel, our government, quote unquote, our government, was in diplomatic talks with them. Israel, because they never wanted those talks to begin in the first place, decides, you know what? We're going. They say they had the green light. I tend to believe that. If we didn't explicitly give them the green light, we tacitly gave them the green light. And now here we are. It's just unbelievable that you could say that this is not anything but a completely unprovoked act of aggression. We were negotiating with them. We've had how many rounds of talk so far? And they go and do this. It's incredible what these fucking people are able to conjure up as justification for a blatant act of illegal aggression.
Yeah, and if you're going to be screaming at people 1 week about how they're committing a genocide, the idea that you're going to see them as a legitimate state capable of moral and legally justifiable actions the next, how does that work?
Right, exactly.
If it's a state committing a genocide, how can you support military actions that it's taking on another front? Doesn't that automatically make the state illegitimate?
Right.
A state committing a genocide? Well, you know what? I don't really like what the Nazis are doing in England, but you can't blame them for the Russian front.
Right.
That's basically what you're saying.
Yep.
Aside from that, just to remind everybody, the United States intelligence institutions already concluded in March of this year that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon. Don't let this stop your propaganda, though. This was somebody responding to Piers Morgan. Tulsi Gabbard signed off on this. This has got to be a very confusing time for all the Cruella de Vil simps who have a real thing for her, it seems. So this woman here is a reporter for Sky News. I did not get her name. She doesn't know it yet, but in 2 minutes, she will become the most hated person across the global South. So she was having an interview here with Mohammad Marandi, who's an Iranian professor, expert on the history of the region, and he calls her out very directly on the hypocrisy of herself and Western media generally.
But how do you know
So are
that
you denying that the top commanders have been killed? Are you denying that top commanders were killed?
Oh, so you mean what you're referring to basically is an attack, an act of aggression, that they suddenly fire missiles at civilian targets at apartment buildings and slaughter people in those apartment buildings, slaughtering whole families. For you, that's targeting. That's a really sophisticated act.
But if I can just ask, have military facilities been hit? Have nuclear facilities been hit?
One of the buildings that had some of these commanders, one or two of these commanders, was a large apartment building where they killed everyone, 60 people, 20 children. That's not important for people like you, but that's important for people like us. For you, people like you who support ethno-supremacism and the chosen people being able to slaughter and exterminate
Professor
Palestinians.
Marandi, I'm just trying to get the perspective. We're trying to give you airtime so that you can give us the Iranian perspective.
So then shut your mouth and let him talk. Then
Yeah,
shut your mouth. He's giving you his perspective.
Yeah, that's a favorite tactic of theirs. They will tacitly attack, badger, question, and slant their questions to discredit the people they're interviewing. And then when they respond and call it out, well, but we're giving you airtime to express your point of view. So clearly we're not biased. If we were biased, you wouldn't be on. Never drawing attention away from the obvious. They have them on in order to try to discredit them with these kinds of slanted questions.
Right, and airtime
right from the beginning. Are you denying she
Right.
sounds like she's working for the Israelis?
Of course. Of course.
And we want to know, and I want to understand, Iran's position here. Will you come to the negotiating table now? Donald Trump, after these series of airstrikes and this attack was launched, called on Iran to come back to the negotiating table. As the spokesperson of the regime, or as someone who worked closely with the negotiating team, do you believe they will come to the negotiating table now?
Well, your regime should know, and your news agency or your TV channel should know better. We were at the negotiating table. It was Trump that conspired with Netanyahu to attack Iran. This is how you twist the truth. You shouldn't invite me because you're easily exposed. Iran was negotiating. Initially, Trump had one position, and so did Witkoff. And then they flipped and said no enrichment. And then they continued the negotiations. And the night before the attack, Trump said that we don't want war. And then after the attack, he said, we're all for it. And you're saying Iran? Is Iran going to come back to the negotiating table? The audacity. Come on. Show at least a bit of integrity. A bit of integrity will help.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay,
they were
Professor
at the
Marandi,
negotiating
thanks again for joining us
table.
here on the program.
Yeah. Take a walk. Yeah. I mean, that's just incredible.
Exactly.
They were at the negotiating table.
Right. That is what is expected of people in her position if you want to get that job and keep that job. This is what Taibbi has written about so extensively, the way it works in these newsrooms, because when you point this out, establishment cheerleaders will say, what do you think, it's a conspiracy? What do you think, they all agree on how they're going to report the news? And Taibbi says, no, it doesn't work that way. People have eyes. They see who gets promoted. They see who gets laid off, and they don't have to tell you how you need to cover things. It's very clear how you need to cover things. So really only the worst people get to that level, and only the worst people last at that level. If you're not the kind of person who's going to present this story from the Israeli point of view with that kind of very unfair, disingenuous framing, you're not going to be the person asking those questions for very long.
How could you ask him, are you guys willing to come back to the table? They were at the table.
They
were at the table. This is what I mean, folks.
They're not reporters. They're spokesmodels.
Yeah. And this is how they brainwash people. This is how they manufacture consent for these ridiculous wars, which have no business being fought. Our country, our government in the United States, Donald Trump, Steve Witkoff, we were in talks with them. Israel takes it upon themselves, technically, to bomb them. And then you ask him, are you guys going to come back to the table? Why don't you ask Israel, are you going to allow these talks to go on? Of course, they won't ask Israel that because Israel never wanted these talks in the first place. Israel has wanted to do this since before 9/11. And just after 9/11, I showed you in the last segment, Netanyahu's coming out. We got to attack Iraq and Iran. Iraq and Iran. They actually thought Iraq was going to be easy. They actually thought they were going to be able to knock 7 countries out in 5 years. Because it wasn't easy, things got more complicated. The timeline became more dragged out. They had to develop alternative strategies. This is that alternative strategy in motion. Israel never wanted these talks. They never wanted these talks. And so the question should be posed to them. Are you going to let these diplomatic negotiations continue because you are the one who interrupted them so violently and so outrageously and so recklessly, pardon me, as to perhaps draw the entire world into an apocalyptic nuclear conflict? That's what the question should be. Not to one of the two negotiating partners, are you willing to come back to the table? It's just extraordinary, but these are the lies they are willing to tell, and they work on people. Now, hopefully, as we said in the last segment, hopefully the memory of the Iraq War is still fresh enough in enough people's mind where it doesn't work on enough of them. That remains to be seen. But boy, are they going to try. They're going to try with everything they got. And you are going to be extremely frustrated watching the TV over the next couple of months, hopefully not the next few years, but certainly in the near future, you're going to see a lot of just maddening bullshit from all corners of the media trying to make this make sense.
I think they're going to have a very hard time with this, because if this had happened under Biden or President Harris, okay, well, then the liberals will go along with anything if a Democrat is in charge of it, literally anything. But it's not. It's Trump. And they just cannot back Trump's play on this. They just can't. And MAGA is not as mindless as the libs. So they're not really biting. I am not seeing the rank and file. I'm seeing more rank and file MAGA say shit we've been had than I'm seeing say, let's go fuck up Iran. I'm not seeing a lot of that. So who are they going to persuade? But this is a good example of why a lot of people say, myself amongst them, you can't get anywhere really until you destroy this media complex and the faith in it. Because you do have so many people who, it really is brainwashing. That framing, will you come back to the negotiating table, and people who believe that this is news, that this is grape juice and not grape drink, that it's not a fake, vague memory of the real thing. Right. People who believe this, they hear that, man, and they just take that programming without even thinking about it. Yes, and many of these people, because it's mostly libs who still buy into the corporate media. Sky News has a more conservative audience, but overall, it's libs who take in these kinds of narratives. You have Israel has been pretty well proven to have put Trump in office. So you care so much about that. Why do you want to side with Israel? But they will never make that leap, because you make that leap, you've got to question everything you believe.
Right. Exactly.
And that is a very scary thing. Like, once you acknowledge that Russiagate was not true and it was a deflection from Israel, if you can accept that, which they won't, that's it. You're red pilled at that point. Once you see that the media would be that dishonest, that they would wage a 4-year campaign of distraction from the reality that anyone who actually knew anything in the media certainly knew of Israel's influence. Once you see that, that's it. And that, for a lot of these people, that has consequences, man. If you're in the professional managerial class, you can't go around and start talking that kind of shit. You'll get fired, man. You'll get kicked out. It's like in Cool Hand Luke, where he goes, "Oh, I knew the whole time you were faking it," and he goes, "Nah, they broke me. You can't fool them about a thing like that." That's it, man. Once you've been red pilled, they're gonna sense it.
Right.
You're not gonna indefinitely be able to fake being a lib in good standing anymore. And that is a big part of why, if you've ever argued with them, they're so resistant. They're such a wall, because you're telling them to almost become a different person, and that's scary for anybody.
Yep, indeed. EO Shush said Trump said protests of his military parade would be met with heavy force, and you just had to test him and try and do the story on Trump's parade and get the stream shut down. Thank you, EO Shush. Oh, yeah. Oh, so, so the stream got shut down on Thursday because StreamYard had a major outage. So it was all across StreamYard. So, yes, that is why the show was cut short. But if you are a member, we sent out the full ad-free replay of the stream plus all the pre-recorded segments. So we did go and pre-record the segments we were going to do on the show that day, that evening. And those are all out on YouTube and Rumble. So we had 3 more to do that we didn't get to on Thursday because the show got cut short due to tech issues. But those are all out there. So everything is now out from Thursday's show. For your viewing pleasure. Abiding 71, Israeli government has ordered airlines not to take Israelis abroad even when rescue flights begin. Trust the process. Israel actually has IDF command centers under hospitals in the middle of civilians. Every lie is a confession. Yep. Eric Rousseau, make Israel Palestine again. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. Appreciate that very much. Landrew, thanks for the $100 over on YouTube. Let's have a cowbell for Landrew, my friend. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate that very much. Says, we know Jen Don is a man of peace. So is this war of Israel and its vassal state, the U.S., over when Israel is as dark as Gaza? Free Palestine, a country for all people of love and peace. We will all walk together in the new Palestine. Thank you, Landrew. That's very kind of you.
Landrew. Landrew is dead.
And a lovely chat. Thank you, Landrew, very much for that. Matrix, thanks to the 9.99s. Sphincter Knuckle Buster, he says. Radicles, thanks to the $5. Get him to the Greek, but instead of Russell Brand and Jonah Hill, it's Netanyahu and Anthony Blinken. Thank you for that. Let's see. Mark Zeus Music says, I'm finishing up recording and mixing an irreverent tune I wrote called Hasbara My Ass. Want to get it to you. Maybe you'll use it or play it. Let me know how. Just email us a link. Once you have it, email us a link. And we would love to hear it. Thank you for that. Fat Not So Fat, thanks to the 9.99, says, we're in Chapter 5 in Brookings Institute Path to Persia. Leave it to Bibi. Expect a reaction and pull America in. Apparently, Iran has documents proving the IAEA colluding with Israel. Jay Bell, thanks for the $2. I have PCDS, Peace Candidate Derangement Syndrome. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Tony B, thanks for the $10, says, talk like Alex Jones, Russell. LOL. There you go. What's it, Alex Jones impression?
It's a comment. I'm sure it'll happen tonight.
I'm sure it'll happen tonight. It's funnier when it's spontaneous, indeed.
Yes.
Dwayne Vogel says the U.S. government. Where is that? Dwayne Vogel chat? I just had it and I lost it. Where is it? There it is. The U.S. government will collude with Israel to engineer a false flag to stifle dissent and manufacture consent for war with Iran. That is a huge concern, obviously, because people are not buying it as is. Fat Not So Fat, thanks for the $1.99. They're going to false flag us back in the Middle East. Thank you for that. KN Kareen, thanks for the donation. I agree. We all need to step up and put a stop to this. We are the American people. It's our government. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Told you, Russ, says Brad Gilbert. MAGA equals movement. Trumpers equals cult leader. There you go. Pasela, thanks for the $5. Love you guys. I now believe that a psychological war has been run against Trump. Remember Taco and Epstein. Craig Gravel says, do dank memes melt steel beams? I like that one. Thank you for that. In scary times, says Artie Bloody Fart Blast, says, taking comfort from on 2 Jews. Thank you, Artie Bloody Fart Blast. Appreciate that. Adam Gorlick, thanks for the $5 donation. Appreciate that very much. All right. We are going to move right on along to segment number 3, the end of MAGA, ? Is this it? Is this the end of the road? Is this the end of the movement?
MAGA versus MAGA. What better way to begin than Tulsi versus Tulsi? Not hard to find. Tulsi Gabbard, a woman who's been on every side of every issue, on different sides of the war issue. So let's see what she said at the big Madison Square Garden rally.
Donald Trump is a vote for a man who wants to end wars, not start them, and who has demonstrated already that he has the courage and strength to stand up and fight for peace. History will look back on us at this moment for the choice that we make. Did we choose war or peace? Did we choose poverty or prosperity? Did we choose censorship or freedom?
President Trump called me 3 hours after his shooting.
He said, did you really
would I come and
that
sit
there?
down with him? And he said to me during that meeting, he said, there are some things that we can agree on and some we disagree on, but the landscapes on which we agree are so much larger. He said, I want to end the wars.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I want to end this surveillance and censorship.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, wow.
I want to protect the Constitution.
Oh, is that right?
I want to protect freedom of speech.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Oh, you think that we deserve a president who's going to end the warfare state and rebuild the middle class? Oh, you want a president who's going to put America first?
You mispronounced Israel. They keep mispronouncing Israel.
You're such a fantastic moron.
So Michael Tracy here, we're going to use a few of his. He's been all over this.
He's the receipt man, this man.
Yeah, he really is. Unfortunately, no one could have seen this coming. A huge shock. He's quote tweeting Tulsi from January 3rd, 2020. We do not seek regime change, Trump declares as he escalates his regime change war against Iran. Neocons like Graham/Bolton are cheering. To all who voted for Trump because of his anti-war rhetoric, it's time to realize he lied to you.
Oh,
stand with me against Trump's Iran war. Oh. Wow, man. Wow. This is like her whole political career is like an OnlyFans account. You know, whoever's paying her, whoever's giving her the opportunities. And I'm really, I don't know how she's going to square this circle, because back in March, this is what she said about Iran's nuclear program.
The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003. The IC continues to monitor closely if Tehran decides to reauthorize its nuclear weapons program.
This is March. This isn't 7 years ago.
No, 90 days ago.
A couple months ago. 3 months ago, she said this. So they're telling you Iran is on the verge of a nuclear weapon. Cruella didn't seem to think so back in March. Nobody contradicted her. Trump didn't say, yeah, she didn't have all the information. Nobody contradicted this, right? Time to resign in protest, right? Principled person that we've been told she is.
I should have hired Liz Cheney. I shouldn't have been so mean to her.
I should have hired Liz. We should have reconciled.
Yeah.
So this was funny from Primo Radical. MAGA influencers today. There's Don Draper selling it. War, but for Israel.
But for Israel.
Here is Sean Hannity speaking of influencers trying to sell it to the base.
As an American, ask yourself a simple question. How many missiles would it take from a foreign country and their proxies that would be fired into the USA, into our country, killing American citizens, terrorizing American citizens, before you would want that country stopped? Would it be one missile? What's your threshold? 2 missiles, 100 missiles, 1,000, 10,000? You know, what would you expect American leaders to do if this country, the #1 state sponsor of terror, was, according to reports, a month to 6 months away from arming themselves with a nuclear weapon, as they have been firing these tens of thousands of missiles throughout the years?
Well, that sounds reasonable. That sounds reasonable.
You talk about a guy who should be on OnlyFans. This guy will just say whatever the administration in power wants them to say, provided they
Yeah.
have an R next to their name.
Isn't Israel the #1 state sponsor of terror?
Yeah.
They sponsor their own. So Tucker, as you'd expect, is not having it, and he called it out, and this opened up the rift very quickly and made it very apparent who lands on what side of it. The real divide isn't between people who support Israel and people who support Iran or the Palestinians. The real divide is between those who casually encourage violence and those who seek to prevent it, between warmongers and peacemakers. Who are the warmongers? They would include anyone who's calling Donald Trump today to demand airstrikes and other direct U.S. military involvement in a war with Iran. On that list, Sean Hannity, Mark Levin, Rupert Murdoch, Ike Perlmutter, and Miriam Adelson. At some point, they will all have to answer for this, but you should know their names now. Now, Mark Levin really lost his shit about this. This is one of many, many tweets he put out about this. More insanity from Chatsworth Carlson. See what he did there?
Chatsworth Carlson.
Hey, thug. Oh, look, he's going all gangsta. He's going gangsta. Hey, thug. I never said to the president that American forces should bomb Iran. The leaker who is feeding you is a liar, as are you. So why do you keep lying and smearing people? Now, Sean and others, you're a reckless and deceitful propagandist. It takes one to know one, Mark. And that's the best I can say. You promote anti-Semitism and conspiracy nuts. You slobber all over some of the most evil people on earth. It doesn't occur to you that your supposed sources are disloyal to POTUS. Hang on. So you're talking about him slobbering over the most evil people on earth, and at the same time, you're declaring your loyalty to Donald Trump. That's interesting. You and they are undermining him, and you just declared your break from the president, from Sadia Lida. You don't give a damn about our armed forces. You know, one could argue the person who wants to keep them out of harm's way actually would be the one that cares about the armed forces.
Yes.
Instead, you give aid, misspelled, but I've been there. We'll let that go. Aid and comfort to our enemies with your act. We won't forget. You're a paper tiger. Your threats mean nothing. It's ironic that he's using a phrase that Mao actually coined to describe the U.S., but okay. Konstantin Kassin. The real divide isn't between people who support Israel and people who support Iran or the Palestinians. The real divide is between people who think that the way to achieve peace is to let Iran build nuclear weapons and people who aren't regarded, we will say, for the algo.
Again, you get this guy. Here he goes, just parroting, same thing.
Well, he's the son of an oligarch, right? He's the son of a Russian oligarch, Konstantin.
Yep.
Richard Spencer with the Ukraine flag, no less. Yay, Tucker. The divide between Zionists and non-Zionists. No one is in love with war for its own sake. You want to ride the fence on Israel. On the one hand, you'll signal your belief in end times prophecies to boomers. All right, man. The thing about being attacked by a demon in the middle of the night, which I'm convinced was Alex Jones in a Red Devil suit.
Yeah.
That was pretty crazy, but okay. On the other, you'll signal anti-Semitism to the online right. What you won't do is clearly state your position. It's a pretty clear statement of his position. I'm not clear on your position from what you just wrote there, but I'm very clear on Tucker Carlson's position from what he wrote. Here's Eric Weinstein, and boy, am I glad that after that stint at the douchebag dialogues, we ran away from all these freaks, because that's looking like a pretty good call now, right? The U.S. has every right to step away. But if Israel alone frees the Persians from the mullahs and rids the region world of a malignant thermonuclear theocracy, again alone, then that will have consequences as well. Israel there's the other tack they're taking. We're doing this to liberate the Iranians.
Same as Iraq.
Vietnam redux. Israel is not attacking the people of Iran. It's trying to end a regional and global nightmare regime. Well, if they were going to do that, they would turn the weapons on themselves. At least let us wish them and the Persian people a safe night while Israel is working through the wee hours to make sure that the mullahs won't be able to strike us here with WMD. Yeah, that's what they're going to do. And let us pray they know what they are doing. Godspeed. Now, listen, I'm sorry, man. I know some people will say, well, I like some of what Eric Weinstein says. I'm sorry, man. There are certain things that are just disqualifying. They're disqualifying. When you say some shit like this, it's disqualifying.
Yep.
I don't care what he says about anything else, because at that point, look, I go to an expert because they know something I don't. Now, if I have to go double and triple check what you say, well, there's no reason for me to go to you. That's why I go to you, because I expect you to know. Once somebody says something like this, their judgment is so tainted, they're worthless as an expert. Even where they're right, you don't know if they're right. You can't trust them after that.
That you would use the phrase WMD, that you would actually type that into a tweet and hit send. You're actually going to use the WMD fear-mongering after the events of the last 20 years. It's unbelievable. And yes, it is discrediting and disqualifying on its face.
Playing the classics. An illustration of how much public opinion has changed on acquiring nukes inside Iran. A woman not wearing a hijab. I thought they'd come and beat you if you don't wear a hijab. I've seen all these videos of women walking around Iran without a hijab. But not wearing a hijab tonight in Tehran, passionately demanding that the Islamic Republic build an atomic bomb. Those around her start yelling in agreement. So these are the Persians that, according to Eric Weinstein, are just sitting there praying for the West to come liberate them from the oppressive theocracy they live in. These bastards have been driving us crazy for 400 years. After all this time, we have been waiting to attack. These scoundrels spent a year and a half killing 500,000 people. Now an attack. We want an atomic bomb. Why not an atomic bomb? Strait of Hormuz, didn't you say you wanted to close it? Do it already. I want an atomic bomb. Yeah, wow. Wow, those people really look like they're going to greet the Israelis and the Americans as liberators, don't they? Don't they? Matt Walsh, as you would expect, taking the other side. Israel is its own country and perfectly capable of taking care of itself. We do not need to be involved in this and should not be. Our country is under invasion. Our cities are besieged by crime and dysfunction. Those are the problems we should be focused on fixing. Our people need to be protected and prioritized by the leaders we've elected. America first, always. By the way, Candace is starting a network, and I'm the first hire, folks.
Yeah.
Mark Levin. Rather than hang their heads in shame for the lies and distortions they have spewed, the isolationists are now desperately attacking the president, real MAGA, and the brave Israelis. You see, the real MAGA are the people who want to prioritize Israel and get into more Middle East wars. If you don't believe that, you're one of those crazy isolationists. You know what that sounds like? That sounds like a neocon. Sounds like a neocon. Doesn't sound very America first. That's classic neocon logic. They claim to be the leaders of MAGA, the influencers, the new thinkers, and whatever BS they come up with. They are a cabal of reprobates. The reprobates, I tell you. Dumb as they come and dangerous as hell. And you scream safety with every word. Laura Loomer, I hear she's going to have a crazy-eyed baby with Kash Patel. They're going to double those crazy eyes between the two of them. A lot of right-wingers LARP as America first. If you watch their content, they are cheering for Iran. How can you call yourself America first if you cheer for a regime that chants death to America? Okay, I'm gonna venture a guess. They believe, with some justification, that it's not Iran that is pouring an undue amount of political influence through finance and blackmail into their government. It's not Iran, it's Israel. So if it might come off in some cases like they're cheering for Iran, I'd say what they're probably cheering for is that Israel is no longer able to exert that influence. That's probably what they're cheering for. Why can't these people just be honest and say they don't like Jews? Just say it. Why are people so afraid of being who they truly are? Just say it. Say it. You hate Jews. Say it. Ian Carroll responds. Now, okay, I met Ian Carroll at Rescue the Republic. He did tell me on the side he hates Jews, but I still feel he has a point. I'm kidding. He didn't say that. Laura, one need only read your timeline to know that Israel is your priority, and America serves your interests in serving Israel. And you slander people who are actually American first and only to try to conceal the fact, which is double shitty. Yep, hit that one on the head, Ian. Jake Shields. Trump told Israel not to attack Iran. Netanyahu responded by telling Trump to fuck off and bombed Iran. Now he says it is America's job to protect Israel, and Trump says he will do as he's told. This is fucking embarrassing. Well, I hate to tell you this, but Trump's about to make it more embarrassing, Jake. Michael Tracy. Pundits and influencers last night, quote, Israel has made a mockery of the USA. This is deliberate sabotage of Trump. Netanyahu must pay. Trump within hours takes credit for the war. Trump can always be relied upon to swiftly humiliate his most deluded and sycophantic boosters. And here's the Donald, a little bit of what he said. I gave Iran chance after chance to make a deal. I told them in the strongest of words, just do it. But no matter how hard they tried, no matter how close they got, they just couldn't get it done. I told them it would be much worse than anything they know, anticipated, or were told, that the United States makes the best and most lethal military equipment anywhere in the world, by far, and that Israel has a lot of it, with much more to come. Yep. And here is potentially some of these influencers laying the ground for a false flag attack, under whose direction, who knows. They are going to kill American citizens, blame it on Iran, and use it as an excuse to get more Americans killed in Israel's war. This is Charlie Kirk. He actually came up in the Tim Dillon segment because he was one of 3 influencers who used almost exactly the same wording about the riots in LA. So clearly there was direction coming from unseen persons, as is very well probably the case here. Keep your head on a swivel. Biden let millions of people into America. See? Look at that. Look at that. Want to hit that reptilian anger at Biden thing so you don't look at this. Iran might activate some sleeper cells against Americans. Stay armed. Now think about it, because you got if there's one uniting thing in MAGA that I've seen, it's anger about the border and immigration, right?
Sure.
So what's he doing? He's tying that issue to Iran. See, you're in danger because Biden opened the borders and the Iranians brought in sleeper agents. So it's actually an immigration issue. It's not a war issue. It's an immigration issue. That's what he's getting paid to tell you in all likelihood. And of course, Laura Loomer. Be very careful today and this weekend in American cities and tourist locations, especially if you're going to be in D.C. Iran has many sleeper cells in the U.S. Iranian proxies from Hamas and Hezbollah will likely retaliate on U.S. soil to kill Americans in acts of Islamic terror as a form of retaliation to the Israeli airstrikes.
Notice none of that happened at any of the rallies in D.C. this week.
No, it did not. Okay, so let's see what some of our current and former elected officials had to say about this. Chuck Grassley, Iran was about to get nukes, not according to Tulsi Gabbard, the DNI, not according to her, just a couple months back. Last night, Israel acted to protect itself, but its action helps protect us because Iran says death to Israel, death to America. You know what? I can't imagine what would make them feel that way. I don't know what we might have done to make them think that they'd be better off without us. And just to remind you, this is from 1995. Interesting byline there, by the way. Chris Hedges, back when he worked for the Times. Iran may be able to build an atomic bomb in 5 years, U.S. and Israeli officials fear. Well, 25 years overdue, I guess, based on that. Mike Pompeo, the idea that Iran poses no threat to us is a fantasy. Iran has killed hundreds of American troops. It tried to assassinate an ambassador in D.C. It tried to kill President Trump. Its leaders chant death to America. We must never let this terrorist regime get a nuclear weapon. And I must point out again, because now they're really pumping up the Iran tried to kill President Trump. I've never seen any evidence of that. And I will point out again, both of these assassination attempts, isn't it weird that you don't know the name of the person that did it? Like normally people who try to assassinate a president get very famous, right? Like they dig into everything about that person. It's front page. Isn't it weird how they really didn't do that in either of these cases? Like you don't know anything about these people. Isn't it weird that Trump didn't come into office and turn the place upside down once he got the keys to the kingdom? That you haven't heard anything about the golf course attempt that they're referring to here or the thing in Butler? Nothing. Very, very strange. Very strange. Almost like they set up that narrative so that they could use it now. Almost like that. Almost like if you dug too much into this, it would unravel and reveal holes in the story that they don't want anyone digging into. Maybe. Just spitballing here. Josh Hawley. Pray for Israel. Stand with Israel. Somebody grokked how much money he's gotten from AIPAC. Senator Josh Hawley received $119,205 from AIPAC between 2019 and 2024, including $109,205 from individuals linked to AIPAC and $10,000 from its PAC. Well, I guess that'll buy you 6 words on Twitter, huh? Rudy Giuliani. Israel attracts all the best people. Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu's courageous decision to eliminate the nuclear capacity and military leadership of the Ayatollah's theocracy was necessary to keep nuclear weapons out of the hands of homicidal maniacs. Netanyahu is the contemporary Churchill. Okay, if there's any motherfucker they've got pictures of in a compromising position, it's Rudy Giuliani. Besides that, didn't he have to declare bankruptcy under lawsuits? So he's highly motivated. He's highly motivated to stay on the right side of his paymasters. Tom Cotton. Iran is the world's worst state sponsor of terrorism, has the blood of thousands of Americans on its hands, and is rushing to build not only nuclear weapons, but also missiles that can strike the United States. We back Israel to the hilt, all the way. And if the Ayatollahs harm a single American, that will be the end of the Ayatollahs. And somebody quote tweeted this on Common Sense, says, it's safe to assume any U.S. official that tweets in support of this insane war is a sexual degenerate being blackmailed by Israel. I think that's a safe assumption. And that's how we know Thomas Massey is a guy who drinks a glass of milk and goes to bed. Israel doesn't need U.S. taxpayers' money for defense if it already has enough to start offensive wars. I vote not to fund this war of aggression. Well done, Mr. Massey. And just for good measure, here's putting on the Ritz here, weighing in. It's a negotiation. Senator John Fetterman loves the actions that Israel's taken here. Michael Knowles put out a poll. Should the U.S. go to war with Iran? No got 89%. Should President Trump allow Iran to develop a nuclear weapon? No got 89%, according to him. That seems a little doctored to me, but okay. And my longtime partner here quote tweeted it. Mike Knowles says, you see the president's conundrum. And he said, no, but I see your conundrum. Their conundrum is, what the hell do we do to hold together our audience?
That's right.
How the hell do we support this war with an audience that is overwhelmingly against it? Overwhelmingly against it. And this was a funny meme. So to put a button on this, when you promised to end 2 wars, and now there are 3. Oh, Donnie looks very dejected. So yeah, man, MAGA, the wheels came off faster than anyone anticipated, and I think we were among those who didn't expect the wheels to stay on for long. But I did not see within a matter of a few months the whole thing would just implode like this.
Yeah, no, it's just it has completely imploded. Anya Parampil posted, rest in peace, MAGA, June 2015 to June 2025, and that really is. This is really the end of it, I think, as a cohesive movement. This is just a point of no return. It's too extreme. These people are going to come out here and start talking about how we have to back Israel to the hilt now because of all of these horrible things that the Iranians chant about Americans and Israelis. Yeah, they chant mean things about a place that is intent on destroying it. They've been chanting these mean things for years. Why the alarmism all at once right now when Israel strikes? If they were this big a threat to us, why did we enter into negotiations with them at all? Why were we even in talks with them? It's like we're in talks with them. Trump himself is saying we want to make a deal. Israel launches a strike, and all of a sudden, they chant all these mean things, and they want to kill us, and so we have to go. Well, if that was the case, then why are we in talks with them? Why are we being told to feel this all at once when Israel makes a move? That's how you know it's nonsense. That's how you know it's for the last 15 years, we haven't been worried about Iran. Have we been talking about what a threat Iran is right around the corner? We need to take urgent action on Iran? No. It wasn't until Israel struck that now, all of a sudden, we have to confront Iran, even though they struck while we were in negotiations with them. Again, this is just past a point of no return. There's no way to bottle all of this back up. If this is not called off, unless Donald Trump hears from the public that this is not going to fly and figures out a way to calm this situation, then that's it. His presidency is essentially over. His legacy is done. It's over. It's ruined. It's destroyed. And I think he understands this, which is why I think we've seen very little of him. He made an 8-minute speech for his big, stupid army parade. 8 minutes. Spent 8 minutes on stage. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, he did some phone interviews, pre-recorded for various outlets to then write about after the fact. But this guy's been on camera just about every day since he took office. I mean, every day we hear from him. He's on the microphone. Hasn't been on the microphone recently. It's because he knows Israel, his Israeli masters, have destroyed both his presidency and his legacy, which are two things that I think he does care very much about, egomaniac that he is. And they're both in shambles right now, as is the coalition that brought him into power.
Yeah. If there's anyone alive to make the judgment, I think there's a very good chance he will legitimately go down in history as the worst president of all time. And we've had some pips. We have had some pips that nobody remembers anymore. Pierce, like nobody remembers these presidents because they were so bad. Everyone despised them at the time. They've been forgotten to history. But yes, this presidency is of a different order of incompetence and malfeasance. Um, there is an opportunity here to open up a conversation. As I mentioned earlier, we have been getting a lot of our MAGA audience saying, "Yeah, we thought you were Trump deranged. Sorry about that." We've been seeing that a lot in the comments. That is encouraging. And hey, we have to start to have a conversation about what a politics for the people going forward looks like. Now, if we can all get on the same page, if we can all agree, Elon does not have any good intentions towards you. Donald Trump does not have any good intentions towards you. Just like you have to get to a place where you can agree that the media is not telling the truth before you can have a conversation with a lib about politics, like a real one, right? Same deal with MAGA, right? You got to acknowledge Trump is not what you thought he was. Elon's not what you thought he was. None of these influencers are there to benefit you or your life. They're there to distract you, brainwash you, keep you caught up in culture wars. Look what we showed. What that was Charlie Kirk, right? Who's putting together the immigration issue with the Iran issue. Right. That's what they're there for. That's what they're there for. They're there to brainwash you, just like Rachel Maddow. They're really no different. Just pitched to a different audience with different concerns and different dispositions. We can all start to agree on that. Then we can start to have a conversation, because this whole system has failed. It is a failed system. So we have to talk about what takes its place, what we do to create a system that works for everybody, where, hey, as far as the culture stuff goes, Keaton has always felt this way, and I feel this way ultimately as well. People should be left to live their lives and raise their families according to what they believe within reason, obviously not abusing kids, but within that parameter. That has generally been the American tradition. I don't think the state should be getting involved in that. And we need to move forward to discuss how we build an economic situation that works for everybody. But I am telling you right now, and I think a lot of people already know this, this economic system is not going to work for people, and you are not going to be able to build one that works for people without taking down these billionaires. You're going to have to take away their wealth, their status, and their power, because exactly as Marx predicted, we're here now, that ultimately the capitalists are going to buy your politicians and your courts. So what good do those institutions do you? In the end, under capitalism, they're going to eat them. We're here. They ate them. That's it. You have no power over your government. The courts have completely unequal enforcement of the law. We have got to all get together across ideological lines and find a move, articulate what a vision going forward would be. Because if you can combine these MAGA communists with the MAGA, with the left, that's a lot of people. That's a powerful movement. We've talked about this. You don't need to have a majority of people to really disrupt the system. You get 10% of people, you can completely disrupt the system.
Labor strikes, you could do it with about 3%, right, if you do a general strike. And yeah, that obviously has to be a major part of the strategy moving forward. But in the short term, we have to just be very, very firm about this war in Iran shit, because this is really an extraordinarily dangerous time. And if you have a memory of the post 9/11 years, you know how difficult it's going to be to counter these narratives, and the people who, voted for Trump, the people in Trump's base, a large percentage of them voted so this wouldn't happen. They thought they thought Trump was the off-ramp to this, and he never was. He never was. So that requires you, if you felt that way, to really let go of any attachment you had to Donald Trump, and to just let go of any faith you had in Donald Trump. Now, if he turns this around, then let him turn this around. I hope he does. I honestly really hope he does. And I think if we speak loudly, if we make our voices heard about this, there's a chance he will. There's a chance he will. But there can be no compromising, no rationalizing, well, he hired the wrong people, and no. The time for that has come and gone. This is now a level 10 emergency, and we have to act accordingly. All right. On to not. Thanks for the $4.99. Rumors or calls from BB made from a payphone in Oyster Bay, Long Island. Thank you. Hillary Hinton says, Michael Mike says, at Hillary Hinton, I got next. Steve LaPointe, thanks for the $5. U.S. military-industrial complex are behind this, not just Israel. They're following orders. 265005 says, hey, Biden didn't commit troops to Ukraine. Is MAGA telling me that Biden was also a peace candidate? Good point. French Laundry says, Gavin Newscomb was inside me during COVID. Naughty boy. Thank you for that. Amadeus, Cyrus was the one who freed the Hebrews. Ironic. Thank you for that. And we had a super sticker that went away when the YouTube studio froze, but I did picture it on my phone here, so I will give a shout-out to the person who gave it to us, who is Green Bob. Thanks for the $50, Green Bob. Let's have a cowbell for Green Bob. Appreciate that. Thank you, Green Bob. Herman Reed says, Happy Father's Day, Keaton. Thank you, Herman. Appreciate that very much. Eric Suarez, thanks for the $5. Told you liberals like Piers were trying to wash the blood off their hands. Don't forget and don't forgive. Nobody who stood for Israel is innocent. Thank you, Eric. Amadeus, the so-called deal was Obama's ploy so that Hillary could Gaddafi them later, but the Donald got in. Yassine Miller, where's Yassine Miller here? Unfortunately, while I agree with Marandi's U.S.-Israel critiques, many Iranian friends in America don't trust him. He's seen as a regime mouthpiece, not an independent voice, so they don't trust him. Sparky says, Keaton, you and Russell better get your mind right. Thank you, Sparky. Appreciate that very much. Okay, let's go here to some Rumble Rants. Professor Brown note says Netanyahu's face tells of clinical insanity. Unlike politicians who have to work to become evil, his wife looks more like Sarah Wiggum. Thank you for that. Kenman G. Max Blumenthal said it best. MAGA was a grift to use Buchanan doctrine to shepherd dissatisfied Republicans back into the party. Yes, I agree with that. Soccer Papa, America First was coined by Woodrow Wilson, whose Wilsonian idealism led to continuous interventions throughout generations. The rapture maniacs haven't been this happy since 9/11, says Which Shigo. Appreciate that. Master Yoda says, why should the U.S. fund wars for Israel while American families suffer? Join the American Communist Party because the future belongs to the working class. Free Palestine. ACP. Thank you for that. Monkey Rotary. The one time in a while I caught the show from the start.
Always be recruiting.
Always be recruiting. That's right. Monkey Rotary says, the one time in a while I caught the show from the start and you bring me this depressing news. Thank you. El Kaminsky says, so incredibly proud to be a dissident member. Brilliant reporting and analysis. Lately, I live for Keaton's passionate and articulate outrage. Well, thank you. Thank you, El Kaminsky. Appreciate that.
Yeah, you've never had him call you about a bad shawarma.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Oh, I did have a horrible shawarma a few months ago. I still think about that shawarma.
Yeah, so
Russ Boomer's
I had to listen to that for an hour and 23 minutes.
Yeah,
I timed it.
Yeah. Or at least as bad as Libs and Mad Cow. Thank you, ex-barbarian. Who's got played more, Bernie Bros or Trumpers? Well, you got to say Trumpers. This trumps everything. If he takes us to war with Iran, that is the biggest political scam in modern history. Yeah, bigger even than the hope and change thing. Because to take it to such cataclysmic lengths, yes, no, this would be the absolute biggest scam and rug pull in modern history. Not really close. Not really close. Speaking of the present and current Hasbro, David Ignacio penned an insane column in the Post about all of Iran's terrorist connections. Ignatius. I got you, Ignatius guy. I thought that was a typo. Appreciate that. Professor Brownell, Jeffrey Sachs' praise of Tulsi was in miniature, a bit like discovering Seinfeld wasn't Zionist. Thank you. Appreciate that. Slutty Cruella should start an OnlyFans, make millions from MAGA sim. She'll even get the preferred algorithm because OnlyFans is owned by a raging Zionist Jew. Interesting. I did hear that. I saw a funny meme, says Pharaoh's Queen, over the weekend that referred to RFK as sounding like a fork in a garbage disposal. Now I can't unhear it. You would still get it, though. Oof. Oy. Thank you, Pharaoh's Queen. Appreciate that. All right. What do we got here? Okay, cool. All right, folks. So it's been a heavy show so far, and we are going to get more into Israel, Iran later on the Rumble side of things. But now it is time for a little bit of comic relief. So how about some comic relief, folks? Let's take a look at Trump's big army parade, which happened yesterday in the rain. So Jackie says, when military men and women in uniform march, they march with tight timing and in lockstep as a sign of pride. These soldiers couldn't be further from marching in lockstep. It's clear that they don't want to be part of Trump's dictator parade and are just phoning it in. Yeah, this is some pretty slouchy marching Army, right here.
As you noted, the other branches are
it's kind of walking.
That's what you call quiet quitting.
Yes, that's quiet quitting. He's kind of walking nonchalantly down the streets. That is not much of a march. That really is not much of a march. Not good, believe me. Not good. Now, in contrast, Jake says, when the army marches with pride. Okay, so here's an example. Okay, this is a march. See that? That's a march. See how in lockstep they are?
Yep.
Versus...
Dude, I can show you Mardi Gras parade footage where they march better than that.
Exactly. Yeah, that is some pretty shit marching. Hey, you know who marches a lot better than that? The Chinese. So Carl Zah says here, posting the Chinese military parade for no particular reason. See, that's marching. Look at that. That's lockstep. Perfectly drawn lines. Look at that. That's what I call a march. That's a march. So let's have a side-by-side comparison here. Global image as a superpower just sank another notch. One wonders how much further Trump can drag the U.S.'s reputation into the gutter. It is falling asleep. Oh, what a day. What a day. I always say Trump is like Atlantic City. He's the human embodiment of Atlantic City. Like, you think it's going to be fun. Oh, we'll go to the Trump parade. It'll be big and gaudy and decadent, but it'll at least be well put together and fun. No, it's actually underwhelming and horrible and boring.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just really, really terrible stuff. And terrible crowd. Mark Segraves, the Army 250 parade starting 30 minutes early due to incoming weather. Crowd nowhere near the 200,000 expected. Yeah, got to kill the music here for copyright purposes, but whole lot of green space. Yeah, exactly. Whole lot of empty space on that lawn. Wow. Pretty underwhelming turnout for the birthday boy right there.
And this just shows you MAGA's over it, because if he had done this 3 months ago, it would have been packed.
It would have been packed. Yeah, it would have been packed. It would have been cold, but it would have been packed. And the fact that he's, starting World War III when most of his base doesn't want World War III, I mean, you're getting the real fucking morons turning out to this fucking thing. Yeah. I mean, you got to be pretty fucking stupid to show up to this thing. I love this. From 4 Seasons Total Landscaping. This is a good account. Some exciting news here at Four Seasons Total Landscaping. We've managed to negotiate a fantastic deal which will see us host President Trump's 2026 birthday parade in our famous lot if Mr. Trump can guarantee to increase the size of his parade crowd by 50%. Great news for all the networks. So, yeah, there is the overhead shot of the underwhelming crowd. And here is the Four Seasons Total Landscaping parking lot. That is probably that's definitely top 5 funniest chapters in MAGA history, is when they were challenging the election results and Rudy Giuliani booked the Four Seasons Total Landscaping as a venue for his press conference, clearly intending to book the Four Seasons Hotel, like a ballroom at a hotel. That's a reasonable place to have a press conference or press event. Clearly just accidentally calls Four Seasons Total Landscaping. And to me, the funniest part about that is the landscaper side of the conversation. We're like, yeah, this is the Trump for President campaign. We're looking to have an event. And he had to know they tried to call the Four Seasons. He had to know they were fucking up and making a mistake. And instead of telling him, hey, just so you realize this is a landscaping company, we're not really designed for press conferences, he's like, $15,000? All right, I'll take a card over the phone right now. Like, he's just like, fuck it. I'm just going to take the money. And they'll come here and, hey, you called my number. It's not my problem. That was a hilarious moment. But here's the tanks rolling down the streets to the bleachers, about half empty. Very underwhelming turnout. Don Winslow tweets, why is the media not covering that the Trump parade has a very, very small crowd? No one really showed up. Very few people. LOL, says Morgan Cameron Ross. Oh, really pathetic turnout here. The look on your face when your $45 million military parade flops with a tiny crowd, and on the same day, millions of Americans march against your corrupt administration. That's right. The No Kings rallies did have very good turnout, which we'll cover in a future segments. Pretty funny video here. The silent crowd with the squeaking has me crying. So, yes, it was so poorly attended that you can actually hear the squeaking of the gears on the tanks over any other noise or music or any fanfare.
There's like nobody there.
There's nobody there. Fucking tanks squeaking down the road. But you know who was there trying
this is not some end of empire shit. I don't know what is.
Yeah, no, it's pretty crazy. Pretty crazy stuff. But you know who was there trying to milk this for all he could? MAGA influencer Jack Posobiec and his wife. They were at the events, and here they are.
Oh, yeah. Here we go.
Here we go. Squeaking, cranking in the gears.
Oh. Look at the gun.
Whoa.
Oh, what a bunch of fucking morons.
Don't make me go back to working at the Home Depot.
Oh, boy.
Let's go.
All right, let's go.
God. Oh, my God.
All right, so you know that this event was a bust.
I didn't think I could be embarrassed for Jack Posobiec.
I wouldn't go as far as to say that. I think it's pretty funny, but yeah, that is some cringe shit. Well, you know, the event was a real bust when, Donald Trump, the birthday boy, saying there's going to be 200,000 people at this event. He was building this up for a year, really, since before he won. He was talking about how we're going to have this major event for the 250th anniversary of the Army. If this weren't a total disaster, you'd think he would have spoken for more than 9 minutes and 46 seconds, which is the length of this video of his speech that the White House put out. And a lot of this is people clapping on the way in and on the outro. So if you time his speech, it's actually a little under 8 minutes. So imagine you came all this way to see this parade, and the president gives an 8-minute speech. That's right, 8 minutes. And we're just going to hear a little bit of it because I feel like he
talked longer to the people at the crypto dinner.
Yeah, so right, longer speech to the crypto dinner, and they got food. They got a meal.
They got the Walmart steaks.
They got the Walmart trashy steak. Yeah, exactly. He comes on for 8 minutes and talks. We're gonna play a little bit of this just because I feel we should. There's nothing much to listen to here, folks. So if you need a piss break, now might be the time.
Fiercest and bravest fighting force ever to stride the face of this earth, the United States Army. Thank you very much.
I mean, I guess the golf clapping is kind of funny because you can just tell there's
the
very
Army
few
keeps
people
us
there.
free.
In the
You
classic
make us strong.
sense.
And tonight, you have made all Americans very proud. They're watching from all over the world, actually. Made them all very
They're
proud.
watching from all over the world.
Every other country celebrates their victories. It's about time America did too. That's
People
what we're
camped
doing
out for
tonight.
2 days to get a spot on the bleachers here.
And
even though
watching
they're
this
half empty.
magnificent display, our souls are filled with gratitude for every generation of warriors who have worn the uniform all the way back to the very beginning. So to every veteran across our land, and right here in our nation's capital, including 6 recipients of the Congressional Medal of Honor, we love you, we honor you, and we salute your noble service to our flag and to our country. No matter the risk, no matter the obstacles, our warriors will charge into battle. They will plunge into the crucible of fire, and they will seize the crown of victory, because the United States of America will always have the grace of Almighty God and the iron will of the United States Army. Congratulations to everybody. We love our country. We've never done better. Thank you. God bless you. God bless the Army, and God bless America.
There you go. That was the beginning and the end of it. Really rousing speech.
Wow.
For a crowd of 200,000 asterisk.
Did you hear that crowd roaring?
Yeah, they were really into it.
Yeah.
Well, here's an awkward turn of phrase here from J.D. Vance, who gave his speech before Donald Trump came on. Weird time to assure people, hey, we'll only send you to war when we have to.
Soldiers, we're so proud of you, and let me tell you that the way that we honor and respect you is, number one, we never ask you to go to war unless you absolutely have to.
Unless Israel wants us to. We'll never send you to war unless
Well, that's the same
Israel
thing.
demands it. Yes. Yeah.
Number two, when we do ask you to go to war, we give you the weapons and the support needed to kick the hell out of the enemy and come back home safely.
So, oops, what happened here? There we go. Sorry. So Coexist puts out a funny version of that piece. Says, why is J.D. Vance code switching during his little speech? Let's see what he means by this.
Our soldiers, we're so proud of you, and let me tell you that the way that we honor and respect you is, number one, we never ask you to go to war unless you absolutely have to, and number two, when we do ask you to go to war, we give you the weapons and the support needed to kick the hell out of the enemy and come back home safely.
That's right. Fell for it again. Well, there were some people in attendance who did not fall for it. There were protesters in D.C. all day, and some were retired military. So we're going to hear from some of the retired military members who were not all about Donald Trump's birthday bash.
2 years. I was drafted.
You're drafted.
1969. Just got married.
So how do you feel about a draft dodger throwing himself a $45 million military birthday parade?
No, the guy is an absolute fucking idiot.
No, I can't even tell you how angry that makes me feel.
I think it's a disgrace.
It's completely unnecessary.
Would you rather see that money put into the VA?
Yeah, absolutely. And also TRICARE treats bone spurs. So
Trump dodged Vietnam. He disrespected John McCain, who was a real actual veteran who served his country honorably, and even afterwards. So the fact that he would take this and use it as some kind of military prop, like he's wanting to be a dictator, because that's what dictators do.
That's right. What a day that was in Washington, D.C. yesterday. The protest, which was not affiliated with No Kings. There was an independent protest in Washington, D.C. during the day that day. Far, far, far greater numbers than this military parade. It was pathetic, as it was expected. We mentioned when we covered it on Thursday There was the guy there who, was trying to book hotels as an experiment, and he noticed that like all 15 of like the lower end hotels that people generally stay for when they're coming quick in and out for an event, all of them still had vacancies, which would not be the case if they were expecting anywhere near the 200,000. If there were 100,000 people going into D.C., which is a relatively small city population-wise, you wouldn't be able to get a room. The fact that rooms were available, the fact that the weather was going to be horrible, and the fact that you're starting World War III on this weekend puts your base, kind of an anti-interventionist base, not really in the mood to celebrate the military. So that collapsed in pretty hilarious fashion. Justice was served on that day, rained on Donnie's parade.
Yeah, that is a hopeful sign, I must say. The less momentum, the less public support they have, even from their own base, this administration has, the less emboldened they're going to feel to do things like illegally send people to CCOT.
Exactly.
We've already seen they're backing off sending ICE into restaurants, farms, which people were saying from the beginning. And, I hope MAGA is waking up now, because a lot of people like ourselves, but not exclusively, we're saying, they're not going to be able to do that. They're not going to be able to do that because you don't have all of these Americans. That's a fantasy that you're going to have all these Americans flooding in to do farm work, to clean motels. That's actually the way that's going to play out. And very quickly, with less deportations than Biden, they stopped. They had to stop. You are not going to get to a point that this administration, even if you like the idea of that policy, deports a number of people, anything that would be significant, that would be really noticeable, before the affected industries are going to lean on the administration to stop. And that's exactly what happened very quickly. And the weaker they get, the less their base is behind them, the less inclined they're going to be to try to shut down courts and force their agenda through, the more timid they're going to be about pushing this Curtis Yarvin playbook of basically destroying the institutions of the country in order to install an all-powerful CEO-type presidency.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And that is why, despite the fact that the No Kings protests themselves were a bit cringy, maybe more than a bit cringy, I still think they serve a purpose because
I like
what
it.
you're saying.
Saw my footage. I like the roach guy. That was cool. Did you see the roach guy?
No.
The roach guy with the rat on his head?
Oh, no. I didn't see that.
There was a guy with a very cool costume.
All right, folks. Well, I got some good news. We have achieved the unicorn of over 6,666 across all platforms, which is good for one of these. The 4 6s. Six.
Rarely
six,
seen.
six.
Rarely seen. Yeah, a viewer made that for us, actually.
Yes. So we are at 2,128 likes on YouTube. Please smash that like button. Smash that like button over on Rumble as well. Where are we at on Rumble likes? 298. Let's juice those numbers a little bit. We're at 2,100 strong in the Rumble chat. Let's get one of these. Big crowd.
Prince got some love after all.
Here we go. All right. Let's see here. Professor Brown Note says, I'm starting a go fuck me for Lock Mark Levin to be approved with Crackhead Barbie for a week. There you go. Bomb. There you go, Eric Cousteau. Thank you. Appreciate that. I'm going to do that. I'm starting Louise Brooks. And didn't they try to say Iran was behind the assassination attempt in Pennsylvania? Yeah. No, they're saying it's amazing how like they'll say that, but then they'll enter into negotiations. And then when Israel interrupts the negotiations, all of a sudden it's hair on fire time. Okay, so if that was true, it wasn't true before Israel struck? You were still willing to enter into talks with them. Like it's so transparently manipulative. Sorry, got that one. Sorry, I'm a little behind here. Let's all go to the lobby. My God, DD is a psyop too. Thank you, Professor Brown Note. You think Israel has dick pics of Macron's wife for blackmail purposes? Oh, good one. Good one. Ron Burgundy.
I mean, Candace made a pretty good case. I will say that. I watched that series. I thought I came away convinced.
Ron Burgundy, thanks for the $50. Let's have a cowbell for Ron. Rumble playing up in my country. Same money for the Keaton war rage. Thank you. Well warranted. Side note, didn't Pakistan offer Iran a nuke last year? And they said no. I don't know about that. I will look into that. That would be good to know. But thank you for that. Appreciate that. Charlie Kirk's poll showed 90% of approximately 500,000 people saying U.S. should not get involved in Israel's war against Iran. Yeah, no, nobody is for this. They weren't for this. They were either psyoped into believing it, or they went along because it paid well into floating Trump as the peace candidate, which he clearly was not. That's pretty obvious at this point. Okay, J.M. Barbarossa. Thanks for the $20. Brian Berletic explains the 2009 Brookings Institute document, which Path to Persia and chapter Leave It to Bibi, followed by U.S. Empire 100% push fake talks. So Iran looks evil. Unilateral U.S. talks at all is proof it is fake. It is UN jurisdiction. Big Gator Caesar, thanks for the $2. Trump idol growing up was P.T. Barnum. Yes. Kuznetsky Bassane keeps speaking truth. DD. Thank you, Kuznetsky Bassane. Appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Andy Gardner says Katzenberg, Israel, Landrieu, who are famous American bankrollers. Yeah, there you go. Donald grabbed them by the pussy. Trump. Get Jake Shields on your show. Great show thus far. Thank you. Appreciate that. Adam Gorlick says there should be a statue of Donald Trump in Tel Aviv made of Play-Doh, soft and malleable for the manipulation of Zionist hands. Thank you. Good one. Fat Not So Fat says bought bunch of calls expecting oil stays high during this conflict. If this becomes regional, the global economy will crash harder than a Trump casino. Yeah, this is what I mean. Like this is war in Iraq, much worse on every level, from a human cost to an economic cost. Yeah.
Oil's already spiking big time, man.
Absolutely.
Big time. That's one of the reasons, I was looking at a house upstate. One of the things, if you're going to buy a house up there, it is freezing. You're going to have a lot of oil bills going on. Oh. Like what are people who are in these cold weather regions going to do if oil doubles, triples?
Yeah, no, it's going to be a nightmare. 100%. No doubt about it. Okay, let's go on to, excuse me. We'll do one more from Sparky here. Remember, Hogan's Heroes fooled Colonel Klink. World War II was over by using fake newspapers and broadcasts. At the very least, that's done to fool Trump on current issues using media he's known to utilize. Brad Gilbert, Russia has the most nukes, and we seem fine with that. Yep, that's the other thing. That's another thing, absolutely. All right, let's go on to all right, we're going to do some local politics here. We're going to do some local politics, the New York City mayor's race.
All right, Zoran Mamdani is having a banner week. Mamdani surges in new poll, leading Cuomo for first time in New York mayor's race. Now, I got to say, the poll, we took a look at it. We didn't really cover it because the methodology I thought was a little quirky, but he's definitely got momentum, so much momentum. I can't say whether this is citywide, but it seems like Cuomo is trying to run up the margins in Harlem. According to polling, he has a 72% polling level with black residents of New York City. So because I live in Harlem, I've been getting the mailers from Andrew Cuomo, and I've been seeing the what's the name of them? There's a name for those in like the campaigning business, door stoppers or
the leaflets, door stoppers, something like that.
Putting leaflets, they've been sticking them in the doors in Harlem. I suspect that's not a citywide campaign. I suspect that's a Harlem thing. So they had the second and last mayoral debate this week, and Mamdani came right out and cold clocked Cuomo hard.
A person in this seat at this time with no experience is reckless and dangerous.
To Mr. Cuomo, I have never had to resign in disgrace. I have never cut Medicaid. I have never stolen hundreds of millions of dollars from the MTA. I have never hounded the 13 women who credibly accused me of sexual harassment. I have never sued for their gynecological records, and I have never done those things because I am not you, Mr. Cuomo. And furthermore, the name is Mamdani, M-A-M-D-A-N-I. You should learn how to say it.
Home and get your fucking shine box.
I guess he calls him Mondami. He calls him Mondami. Yeah, he mispronounces his name. Yeah.
Yes. And not long after that, Brad Lander, who I went back and checked, he was one of the 5 who did not say their first foreign trip would be to Israel. So if he hadn't, would have been hard for him to do this cross endorsement that he just did with Mamdani, because we have a ranked choice voting system changes the calculus a little bit.
Hey, good morning.
How's it going?
Please go second.
No, I insist you go second.
How about I go first and you go second?
Well,
we both love New York City.
And that's why it's so important to not send scandal-ridden, corrupt Andrew Cuomo to City Hall.
New Yorkers deserve so much better than a disgraced creep.
Agreed.
Zoran, you've done a remarkable job building a historic grassroots campaign for a New York City all New Yorkers can afford.
Brad, you've been a principled, progressive leader in our city for years.
Early voting starts tomorrow, and we both know what we need to do to save our city from Andrew Cuomo. You want to tell him?
You go first.
Nah, you go first.
Let's do it together. We're cross-endorsing.
In New York City, we have ranked choice voting. That means you can rank up to 5 candidates for mayor.
Brad and I are officially telling our supporters.
Rank me number one, rank Zoran number 2. Let's send Andrew Cuomo
back to the suburbs.
Now, you know who's really not appreciating all the love that Mamdani is getting? The Zionists. Zoran Mamdani says he'll divest from Israel if elected as mayor of New York City. Nearly 1 million Jews live in New York City. Almost 2 million live in the New York metropolitan area. If he wins, your city will become like London under Sadiq Khan. Dun, dun, dun. Good luck. You know, it's funny how tacitly racist these people are.
Yeah.
It'll be like the other scary Muslim man.
Yeah, when the other brown man controlled the big city. Yeah.
So let's see what he said. And hey, man, to his credit, this is why I went ahead and went against my usual policy and endorsed somebody running as a Democrat. He has not been backing down. He has not been getting mealy mouthed. They've been going after him on his stance on Israel, and he's been standing strong.
The anti-Semitism task force that the mayor just created?
I would have to interrogate any of the actions by Eric Adams, because what we've seen is he's not sincerely committed to addressing the issues that he's using as a justification for so much of what he's done as the mayor. We have to ensure that they're actually delivering public safety.
So on that note, Mayor Adams just signed this deal between New York City and Israel to launch this New York City-Israel Economic Council to strengthen economic ties between the two. Would you consider that council? Would you continue it?
I think that what we need is a mayor who is squarely focused on the affairs of New York City.
So is that a no?
This is to me, it is an attempt by Eric Adams to distract from his larger record of failing New Yorkers and to try and position himself as a leader on confronting a very real issue of anti-Semitism. And it is in many ways similar to that of Andrew Cuomo in trying to use an issue that New Yorkers deserve an actual answer to just simply score political
He's looking for an economic tie here. So you're saying that it's a no. You would not consider it. Politics aside of what Eric Adams is trying to do, is it a good idea to have this partnership with Israel for the economic ties?
That's not something that I would pursue.
Okay.
All right. Stephen Goldstein. Shame, Irish guy. Shame on New York City mayoral candidate Brad Lander, who is Jewish, for cross-endorsing the anti-Semitic Zoran Mamdani in the ranked choice Democratic primary. Lander's decision is disgusting. He's prioritizing craven ambition over the safety of 1 million Jews in NYC proper. Yeah, that's the craven move in New York City, to endorse the Muslim anti-Zionist candidate.
Right.
Yeah, that's the that's the road the ambitious would trod.
Yeah, and very quickly, that is essentially what Lander is doing, because in the ranked choice voting system, the way it works is that when you are eliminated, when you come in last, they count whoever voted for you, they count their second choice.
Right.
And Lander
Exactly.
is polling far behind Mamdani, which means eventually at some round he is going to be knocked out, at which point, if his voters heed his advice and rank Mamdani second, Mamdani would benefit
Would
tremendously
pick
from
up
that
those
in the
voters.
later
Yeah.
rounds. And so it's essentially Lander endorsing Mamdani. I mean, Mamdani said, yeah, rank him second because Mamdani knows he's going to outlast him in the round robin.
Right. And here you have the Queen's Chronicle editorial. We make no endorsement in the Democratic mayoral primary, but we make an anti-endorsement. This city cannot have an anti-Semitic socialist at the helm. Vote anyone but Mamdani.
Never even heard of the Queen's
No, not did you eat, but did you eat?
Yeah. And of course, they're pulling the
Hillary
Dashiki classic here.
Yeah.
This is from Mamdani himself. Andrew Cuomo is afraid he'll lose, so his donors want you to fear me. His super PAC just sent out a mailer that artificially lengthened and darkened my beard. This is blatant Islamophobia, the kind of racism that explains why MAGA billionaires support his campaign. So you can see there on the left what he actually looks like and what they sent out on the right, making him look very foreign and exotic, like a villain from a Indiana Jones movie.
Hillary
Now,
Clinton did the same thing to Obama, by the way, in
yeah,
2008.
with
They
the
darkened
Sheikah.
his skin
Yeah,
color.
well, they put out pictures intentionally of him dressed in African robes. Okay, so as you'd expect, Andrew Cuomo is attracting all the worst, slimiest scumbags in the city, including the king of the grift, the grandfather of the race hustle, the Al Sharpton himself. So he does this annual conference, and he invites, no care that he's been credibly accused of sexual assault and sexual harassment by 13 women. No care for the fact that he took bribes from the hospital lobby. Oh, donations, I mean. And then released them from liability in COVID, then went on to undercount the COVID deaths in nursing homes in his own report, a report that he now will not take personal responsibility for, or during debates answer questions about whether he knew what was in that report. Netanyahu's personal lawyer. These are the people that Al Sharpton, who would have you believe he's a paragon of moral virtue, who represents the Black community. This is the person that he's tacitly endorsing here this weekend.
To have a fighter against Trump. Don't bring no punks to the real fight. And Andrew didn't say that, I said that. As you know, National Action Network does not endorse candidates, and I do not endorse yet. I might wake up in the middle of the night and tweet something else, but right now. But one thing that did confuse me is I read New York papers even though I'm on the road, and I read where my sister Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had endorsed Mamdani and said her second choice was Adrian. But then this morning they say that Mamdani and Lander done endorse each other. So I guess the Black woman, I don't understand that kind of stuff. Confusing me. I'm just saying, you for one guy, Black woman number two, but then that guy and another guy endorse each other. I was built funny. My brain is here, back here. My mouth protrudes here. My nose is here. So sometimes I can smell stuff or I could taste it and understand it. Something about that politics ain't progressive to me. Y'all will get that by tonight in the noon.
First visit, I would visit the Holy Land.
Yeah, so that's Adrian Adams, a former corporate lawyer who, as you could see, was one of the 4 candidates on stage who bent the knee and said that her first foreign trip as mayor. Why that's relevant to a mayor of New York, a lot of people have pointed that out, and you're absolutely right. It shouldn't be. Yeah, she's one of those who said her first foreign trip would be to the Holy Land. Get it? If you didn't endorse the black woman, it doesn't matter what her positions are, doesn't matter what her background is, you're a racist, right? You're not a progressive. This is what I mean. Like Al Sharpton is really the granddaddy of race hustlers. Now, as a native New Yorker, I remember Al Sharpton's origin story. That's really been buried. The way that he first rose to prominence was he hyped up what turned out to be a false story of a teenage black girl who claimed that she was gang assaulted by cops. And he would never admit that it was fake. He rode that thing. He never came out and said, yeah, I made a mistake. That was how Al Sharpton first rose to prominence. And I'll tell you, Giuliani, it's easy to forget how formidable he once was, being the pathetic drunk that he is today, the broken man that he is today. But one of the reasons Giuliani was able to gain so much purchase was acting as a foil to people like Sharpton. Sharpton demanded a meeting with Giuliani. I still remember this. Giuliani said, you know what? We've wasted enough time with clowns like Sharpton who pretend to represent their people but only represent themselves. And you know what? A lot of people from that community actually appreciated it because Sharpton's always been a very obvious grifter. No more so. What was he doing there with the nose, with the mouth? What the fuck was that about?
Yeah, yeah.
It's like he's trying to do the cadence of the preacher, which is pretty much his shtick. And he just got out over his skis. He thought it was going to go somewhere, and it didn't go anywhere. Wow, what a fucking hustler. So speaking of worst people in the city, Mike Bloomberg, I care deeply about the future of our city. And since leaving office, it has been difficult to watch its struggles, especially since the pandemic. In sizing up the field in the race for mayor, there is one candidate whose management experience and government know-how stand above the others. And by the way, he knows how to spot a great piece of ass, just like me. Just like me. And of course, he put his money where his mouth is. Mike Bloomberg has given $5 million to the pro-Cuomo super PAC, the largest infusion of cash yet for the PAC. It comes days after he endorsed his former political rival for mayor. This is from Politico. Down the home stretch, Cuomo's allies unleash millions to topple New York City mayoral rival. The pro-Cuomo PAC has flooded the Democratic primary with $14.7 million with no sign of abating. The super PAC, called Fix the City, reported raising $18.5 million in the latest filings with the Campaign Finance Board. Campaigns are prohibited from coordinating with the super PAC supporting them. The city board fined Cuomo's campaign $756,994 for improperly coordinating with Fix the City over one of its broadcast ads. All right, so Cuomo is such a corrupt pig that he's already been busted coordinating with this super PAC. He made it so blatant. And it's you have to set the bar pretty high before they'll fine you, because there are a bunch of documented cases where the same exact super PAC, the same exact interests would meet with him, give him the maximum you can give a candidate. If you have business before the city, we have a law here, you can only give $400 if you have business before the city, which pretty much any real estate developer does all the time. And then the same day, they would give hundreds of thousands of dollars to the super PAC. Oh, no, that's not coordinated at all. And this will give you an idea of what kinds of interests are giving to his Fix the City super PAC. Finance, almost 23%. Real estate, almost 29%. Ride and delivery, about 9.5%. Unions, very little. Very little. And then other. So Mamdani on Saturday had a very big rally last night. And you see here, commenter says, looks like several thousand on hand to see Zoran and AOC. Hard to remember any mayoral campaign ever doing crowds like this. And the person who quote tweeted it, Courtney Gross, says, been doing this a long time. I don't think I've ever seen it. I think they had about 3,000 people there. This is interesting. They got an Irish union leader and a Bengali union leader opening up for Zoran, each inflecting their speeches with their characteristic accents, which I loved hearing. This is old New York and new New York coming together for a better city for all of us. And, it's an interesting point. I'm from Queens. When I grew up, it was very much full of the Irish guy, the Italian guy, Jews. But yeah, when I go out there now, it's much more reflective of that Bengali. So that is pretty cool that he opened up like that. Here's AOC. I don't know, man. She must have moved whatever relatives Pelosi threatened on that Iron Dome vote to an undisclosed location. Because she went out there and went after the party leadership.
Establishment sends to so many people is that it does not matter. Political establishment sends to so many people is that it does not matter your positions, your content, your ideas, how experienced you are. It doesn't matter how much you work with them. They will still choose their old friends and an old generation every single time.
She also, at another point, yelled "Free Palestine," which generally that's kind of a no-no for members of Congress who want to stay in the good graces of Mama Bear. This is someone saying exactly what we've said here again and again. And this is why we don't want to discourage people, but don't get your hopes up. NYC is not a leftist city. It's a capitalist one with a thin liberal veneer. Exactly. Anyone who has lived here through several political cycles knows this. The city that voted for Giuliani, Bloomberg, and is highly likely to vote for Cuomo is not the same as Portland or San Francisco. Yes, exactly. I think that Mamdani could pull off an upset in this primary because Cuomo is such a loathsome pig. And because of the tone of the moment, I think Cuomo kind of plays as another Trump to a lot of the libs who might otherwise come out and support him. And obviously there's an enthusiasm for Mamdani, but veterans of the Bernie campaign have seen this before. Reliable old boomers in the end are a better base than excited young people who show up to rallies. It just is. Now, but because the person he's running against is Andrew Cuomo, he could pull off an upset in the primary, but Andrew Cuomo has stated if he loses the primary, he is going to run as an independent. Can Mamdani win against Adams, who's also running as an independent, Cuomo running as an independent, and then Curtis Sliwa presumably will again, he's kind of the perennial Republican nominee here in New York the last couple cycles. Can he win? Possibly if Adams and Cuomo split the New York neoliberal scumbag vote, maybe, but it's not the way to bet.
Yeah, that's going to be a very tough four-way race. I mean, the thing Mamdani will have going for him is he will be the Democratic nominee, and New York is a very Democratic town. If he clears this first hurdle. Like I said, it's a very long way to City Hall for him because he has to clear this first hurdle, and then he's got to win a four-way race. against the incumbent mayor, a very, very well-funded Democrat/independent, plus you have the Republican in the race as well. There is a big difference between, and as much as I'm hesitant to get involved in intra-Democrat politics, in this case, you're talking about as stark a difference as you could possibly imagine between Mamdani and Cuomo on the issue of our time. You have Mamdani, who is not just a liberal two-state solution, mealy mouth, kumbaya bullshit, lib. You have Mamdani, who is one-state solution, anti-apartheid, anti-occupation, versus Netanyahu's lawyer. I mean, Andrew Cuomo is on Netanyahu's legal defense team against the ICC.
Right.
Netanyahu is also, Cuomo is also saying he will use the IHRA standard for anti-Semitism as a legal basis for policing quote-unquote anti-Semitic speech in New York City. And the other point you have to
which
remember,
Adams, just to interject quickly, Adams has already signed that executive order.
Sure. Yes. And Cuomo is no different. And so you also have to think New York City is where some of the most important speech in the world takes place. It's where the UN happens. It's where a lot of conferences happen, a lot of debates happen, right? There's a lot of important speech that takes place in New York City. And so to have Andrew Cuomo or Eric Adams overseeing that is a very stark difference between a guy like Mamdani overseeing that. And so, if you're still registered within the party, I think you have to vote for Mamdani in the primary. And then you see what happens. If he clears that hurdle, then you have a very, very interesting four-way race where a lot of the infrastructure is going to be against him, except for the fact that he does have that D next to his name in a highly Democrat city. And the thing that surprised me about this race is that the unions have been so down on Cuomo, and so much of the establishment has been so down on Cuomo. Letitia James is not ranking Andrew Cuomo.
Right.
He is really reviled to the point where it's creating an opportunity for Mamdani in the first place. The question going into this is Andrew Cuomo too vile for the lame brain Democrats? And I never bet on that, because I think Democratic primary voters are the most mindless people in America. So this is a question. Is that Tea Party moment here? Does AOC's endorsement push him over the top? Are we in a moment of flux? It's possible. It's possible. And I didn't think it was possible a few months ago, but the trends have proven me wrong about that. That's partly because of Cuomo. It's partly because the Democratic brand nationally is just in the toilet, particularly the two Democratic leaders in Congress, both New Yorkers, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, both shitting the bed, both doing a horrible job, according to their own voters. So all of these things combine to create a unique moment and a unique opportunity for Mamdani. He's got a lot of hurdles he has to clear, but it is possible.
Also, we've talked about this. New York is a place where, unless you're super rich, once you get married and you're having kids, you move out. So it skews younger. And I definitely do see, being on the ground here in the city, that there's a shift in tone, because this next generation, as the Gen Zers, are starting to become more of a dominant force, along with the younger millennials. Yeah, it is shifting the politics, and it does seem like there's a possibility that they could overwhelm an unenthused boomer contingent.
Yep. So we will see. Primary is a week from Tuesday. All right, we're going to take a quick pause to hear from Rumble Premium. So this sponsorship is from Rumble, and it's one that's incredibly important to the survival of the company. When Rumble first started in 2013, they built the platform for the small creator. They didn't censor or have biases. They were fair and treated all creators equally. No one thought platforms would censor political conversation or opinions on topics like COVID, but they did. Facebook even admitted they fell to pressure from the Biden and Harris administration. But Rumble did not. They held the line, and they're attacked daily for giving shows like us a voice to talk to audiences like you. They're attacked in corporate media. They're attacked by governments like France. They're attacked from brand advertisers who refuse to work with them. So while corporate America is fighting to remove speech, Rumble is fighting to preserve it. But Rumble won't survive with brand advertisers because they don't get many of them. So watching our show on Rumble is the most they can ask from you. But if you really believe in the fight and you have the means, one major way you can help Rumble survive is by joining Rumble Premium, which is, of course, the ad-free version of the platform. So join the community that believes in the First Amendment and believes in our human right to free speech. Rumble is offering $10 off with the promo code STUDIO when you purchase an annual subscription. So go to rumble.com/premium and use promo code STUDIO. Like I said, if you have the means and believe in the cause, now's the time to join Rumble Premium. If you don't have the means, we are, of course, just happy if you watch us on the platform. All right. Got that in the can. Jake, can you please hit the patron scroll for us? So if you like what we're doing and you want to help us do more of it, the best way you could do that is by becoming a member. You can go to dodissidents.com/Patreon, /Substack, or /Locals. All three of those links that are displayed on the top of the screen there take you to our member platforms. It's just $5 a month. You get all kinds of perks. You get call-in access to our weekly Q&As every Sunday night on Rumble after the show. Tonight, Sunday, we will be doing a Q&A. Callers got to stay up a little late. It's going to be a long one this evening, like we said at the beginning, just so much going on. But we'll be doing Q&A tonight after the conclusion of the program. You get your name up in lights here on the show scroll. It's a nice shout-out. You also get access to our once-a-month post-game show, which is our exclusive segments done for paid members after the main show ends, with call-in access as well for a post-show Q&A. We do film club live streams once a month. You also get live stream. You also get full live streams ad-free emailed to you the day after they stream publicly. So if you miss a stream or you only catch part of it and you don't want to watch it back with ad interruptions on any of the platforms, if you become a member, you get the full stream emailed to you in its entirety, unedited, uncensored, the next day, where you can watch it ad-free, just like you were watching live. So that's a great feature that a lot of people are very excited to take advantage of. So the links are dodissidents.com /Patreon /Substack or dodissidents.com /Locals. Thank you very much for your support. Conor McGregor says, Russ, we all decided to base our lives off Bronze Age mythology, right? Alex Jones' impression is beyond accurate. You're a sage. Thank you. Appreciate that. Tracy O'Keefe, thanks for the $5. Thanks, guys. No war with Iran. That's right. Sparky, thanks for the $10. There was a recent push to convince President Trump the largest part of his base are Christian Zionists. BS, I'm in the Bible Belt, and only church leadership receiving checks from Israel are Zionists. Jay Rahman, thanks for the $4.99. Palestinian flag and the muscle. Thank you for that. Sparky says the various individuals in the church congregations are very disgusted with Israel. Well, that's good. Fat Not So Fat says World War III before Grand Theft Auto 6 release. The hell, man, I need to witness twerking physics in an VR headset while taking Blue Chew gooning until my heart gives out. There you go. Sparky, do you remember that Iran held a candlelight vigil in sympathy for the U.S. after the 9/11 attacks?
Yep.
I do. Yep, that's right. Jessica May says, after watching BB Files, I don't understand why Adelson would want a war with Iran. A war would disrupt her casino business. Thoughts? I haven't watched that movie. I have to watch that movie. Everybody's talking about that movie now. That was on the short list for the Oscars, actually, the BB Files, that documentary. And I don't know what happened to it.
We can find it, right?
I'm sure we can. Sparky, thanks for the $10. MEK stooge Rudy Giuliani lied in Madison Square Garden about President Reagan supporting Israel. Reagan told Israel to go F itself at least twice during his presidency. Sparky says, keep in mind Israel has killed many more Americans than Iran. Remember the USS Liberty. Thank you. Meredith Hook, thank you for the super sticker. Appreciate that. Brad Gilbert says, mean tweets good, mean chants bad. Free speech is ? Yes, good one. Jessica May says, did you notice at the end of the parade there was a Lockheed commercial? It might have even said sponsored by. Oh, that's interesting. I know Palantir sponsored it. That's not a Surprise. I know they kicked in some money to cover the costs. Good news is it didn't tear up the streets as they were afraid that it might. Free Shit says this is really going to...
They saved a lot of money not sponsoring Pride this year.
Yeah, that's right. Free Shit, this is really going to help the Dems in 2028 keep in the vote. Thank you for that. Appreciate that very much. Okay, let's keep on moving. All right, so folks, this is our last segment of the night on the YouTube side, and then we are switching to Rumble after this for the remainder of the show. We still have a lot more show to do, a lot to cover on this very tumultuous end to the second weekend of June. DoDissidents.com/Rumble takes you to this active Rumble stream. So make sure you head on over there at some point between now and the end of the YouTube portion of the show so that you could stay with us for the remainder of the program. If Rumble is blacked out in your area, we are live on X and will remain live on X through the duration.
A lot of the show is on the other side tonight. We have not done this much of the show on the other side in a long time.
That's right. All right, so we will head on over there in just a few minutes, but we do have another sort of activism summary to give you. So, folks, over the weekend, MAGA became pro-lockdown. That's right. Cat Turd said, stay home if you can today, yesterday, June 14th. The party of violence, the Democrat Party, will be out causing destruction. So you're saying it's dangerous outside, or we should all stay home? Is that basically what you're saying? Because it could be dangerous out there. Interesting.
So Elon didn't end up completely fucking him in the face. He let him keep his following.
Matt Van Swall says, I'll be downtown today covering the protests here in Asheville, North Carolina. We'll stay safe. Brave man.
Wow.
Brave man, Matt Van Swall. So the write-up afterwards, no Kings rallies draw big crowds to protest Trump and his policies. Americans turned out en masse in communities across the country Saturday, raucously pushing back on what they see as President Donald Trump's widening authoritarianism, attacks on immigrants, and deep cuts to scores of federal programs. Organizers had said they hoped the rallies in more than 2,000 cities, dubbed No Kings Nationwide Day of Defiance, would be peaceful and free of confrontation. Yet the day was marred by the news of deadly violence overnight in Minneapolis, where 2 Democratic state legislators were shot with their spouses in what Governor Tim Walz called a politically motivated attack. Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband died, and the other couple were seriously wounded. Officials said they were cautiously optimistic about the couple's prognosis. We'll have more about that on the Rumble side. Given that the gunman was still at large and that no Kings flyers had been found in his car, Walz urged protesters to stay away from the many related events planned statewide. At least one in Minneapolis was canceled. Yeah, I don't find it suspicious at all that they had that, no Kings literature in his car. Hours later, the Texas Department of Public Safety warned of credible threats to lawmakers planning to attend the evening rally at the state capitol in Austin. The building was evacuated soon after. The event organizers said it would proceed as planned. Our friend Anish Shivani was at the Austin rally, took some video that seemed to go off without a hitch, despite that incident. And Saturday night, a person taking part in the No Kings rally in Salt Lake City was critically injured during a shooting. The police department posted on X that a person of interest was in custody and that the situation downtown remained very fluid. So here's the headline from that. 1 person critically injured, 3 in custody after shooting as 10,000 march in Salt Lake City during No Kings protest. The motive for the shooting and the events that led up to it remained under investigation as of this airing. We don't know what the motivation for that was. So you had the Minnesota incident, which was not attached to a rally, but didn't happen at a rally. A rally was canceled in response to that. You had the Austin scare, which was preceded by, obviously, the event happening without incident. And then you had Salt Lake City. Elsewhere in the country, relatively few disruptions were reported during rallies where the mood ranged from joyful to defiant. Don't forget, there were a couple of thousand of these things. Like, there were quite a few of these things. Yeah. And those were the only incidents that happened. In Philadelphia, the crowd was accompanied by the notes and beats of a saxophone, drums, and tambourines. In Los Angeles, which had seen a week of protests after federal immigration raids in the area, indigenous dancers helped to kick things off. Couples came, families came, individuals who said they never before protested came. They carried hand-lettered signs focused on democracy, the rule of law, and human rights. The scenes were a stark contrast to the one planned hours later in the nation's capital, where Trump... Yeah, exactly. Where Trump would preside over a grandiose display of military tanks and soldiers as part of a celebration of the Army's 250th birthday on a day that also happened to be his 79th birthday. So here's a little roundup of the No Kings protests, along with some videos of crowds.
Across America and around the world protested for No King's Day today, with there being crowds said to be record-setting. And I mean, look at the footage. The people just go on forever. And as far as some of the things we've seen in Los Angeles, they carried a massive copy of the U.S. Constitution. In Florida, protesters marched to Mar-a-Lago. San Francisco formed a giant human banner that said No Kings. Nashville endured the rain to protest. Chicago's protest was so big that one reporter speculated that it could be the biggest protest in the city's history. City officials in Boise announced that today's protest is the largest gathering in the city's entire history. In Idaho, I didn't know you had it in you. I mean, look at the photos. Is that like a third of Idaho out there? Even small towns in America have shown up in massive numbers, from Little Rock, Arkansas to State College, Pennsylvania, with it appearing that many Americans are absolutely pissed with the ICE secret police, the use of the military on the people, the authoritarian crackdown on free speech, the camps, the corruption, and the general lawlessness that this regime conducts itself with. Right in that is there were also huge protests in the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Italy, Switzerland, and over 37 other countries for the American people's struggle against tyranny, which is just wild to see. I mean, I want you to think about what it means that people in other countries are protesting for your freedom. Like, that's a thing that we normally see happen here. Though I suppose, as Thomas Paine wrote in Common Sense, the cause of America is in great measure the cause of all mankind. And if an American democracy and our rights are killed by Trump or whoever, then really nowhere is safe for democracy. But for now, be smart, stay safe, and follow to stay in the loop.
So yes, the crowds were quite big. We'll take a closer look here. This is the LA crowd. See if people goes on
Jesus.
For quite a bit.
Wow.
Yes. Pretty overwhelming numbers here in Los Angeles. Russell caught the tail end of the New York City protest. So here's the overhead view of that near the Bryant Park Library. So that's going all the way up Fifth Avenue there. And on to, looks like 42nd and 41st Street. Pretty large crowd there as well. The Tennessee Holler had some snark here. It says, update, we apologize. We downplayed the size of Trump's military charade, but it seems the turnout was actually pretty big. Wait, sorry, this is the Chicago No Kings March. Please disregard. So yes, here's some overhead view of the Chicago March. And obviously you had cities large and small throughout the country with pretty impressive turnouts. In San Francisco, they made this pretty cool human No King banner. Protest formed a human banner at Ocean Beach during the No Kings protest in San Francisco on Saturday. You also had Kansas City turn out in pretty large numbers. Yes, once again, Boise, Idaho, largest gathering in Idaho history for No Kings. And yeah, of course, it was going to mostly go off without a hitch. This was organized by the Walmart heir in part. The Walmart heiress in part. I shouldn't say it was organized, but she did a lot to promote it. Walmart heiress Christy Walton promotes No Kings anti-Trump protest in ads. So this was in the New York Times. Obviously, No Kings, June 14th, mobilized, paid for by Christy Walton. The views represented here are solely those of Christy Walton. And yeah, these are some of the signs you would expect, kind of a women's march type crowd. This is why it didn't surprise me that there was really not much to speak of in terms of violence. You cat turd, stay home, they're going to attack you. These are libs. These are people who, for the most part, they take the train in, they get a Starbucks, they go to the protest, they drop a couple $100 on dinner, and then they go home. I mean, it's, you know, not exactly a radical bunch. You sucked in Home Alone 2, reference to Trump's cameo. IKEA has better cabinets. You know, this is
I saw that same sign in New York.
Yeah. Yep.
No, really, I did.
Yeah, no, that's a big one. They like making that joke. I've heard that one before. Yes, that red hat does make your dick look small. See, very, cute, snarky. This one is actually kind of cute. I like this one. It's a cute dog. Nobody is eating the dogs, says the dog at the march. See, very kind of non-threatening. They're eating the checks. They're eating the balances. That's, again, typical lib humor. And then this is where it gets a little more infuriating, obviously, and this is the problem with these people. If Kamala were president, we'd be at brunch. Okay, so if there were a genocide happening under Kamala Harris, you'd be at brunch. This is the problem, right? This is why you are not reliable organizing partners, and this is why there's obviously very legitimate critique of these protests.
I can't believe they haven't gotten the message yet about that signaling.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Like they have been so pilloried for that formulation. I can't believe anyone would still make a sign like that.
Yeah. Well, if you live in your own social media bubble, you might not get the word of how cringe that is to so many people. And obviously it's beyond cringe. I mean, this is of course why organizing with these people has been so impossible because of this, because you just cannot get them to care about issues unless a Republican is in office, right? So G. Gamash says, my biggest takeaway from the No Kings rally is that there really should be a political party that could channel all this energy into something productive and progressive, because it sure isn't the Democrats. And so Jason Call, who was Jill Stein's campaign manager in 2024, says, I'm not going to shit on the No Kings protests. If it is a sign that people are waking up, then excellent. However, and he refers to a previous tweet of his, good No King showing in Starwood and Marysville this morning, but I will say, if your goal as a participant is not to dismantle capitalism and empire, then these protests are nothing burgers and will lead to more kings. So, look, I mean, it should go without saying that I share in the criticism of these protests along those kinds of lines, and I think it is reflective of the lack of character, of a lot of these people. Not all of them, obviously, but the people who would bring a sign like, hey, if Kamala were president, we'd be at brunch. In other words, none of these things would matter to us without Donald Trump overseeing them. And not none of them, but at least the ones that he has in common with Biden, and then obviously Kamala Harris, should she had won. But what I will say is, and this is kind of similar to the point that we made earlier, and when you talk about Mamdani, or you talk about the idea of just mobilizing people in general, I think when you have an administration that is this hostile to people's right to freedom of speech and freedom of public assembly, the very act of going out in the streets and demanding something is useful. I won't say it's revolutionary. It's obviously not a revolutionary act here to say if Kamala were president, we'd be at brunch. But it is useful. Sometimes you just need bodies in the streets, because the more bodies are in the streets, the more precedent you set that people can actually disrupt the order of business that this government would like to implement. The fact that they're stopping the ICE raids at workplaces is a perfect example. They saw after LA, which were mostly peaceful protests, yes, there were looting. Yes, there were people who got out of hand. And yes, the incompetence of the state and city government gave Trump an opportunity to send in the troops and all that. I acknowledge all that. We've done a few videos about that. I don't have to rehash that now. But the very act of going out and demonstrating that, hey, we are just not going to be intimidated into silence. We are going to mount, even in this case, a pretty benign and nominal resistance. If you put enough pressure on the system, even in that way, it's good, first of all, to just set precedents with each other that you can actually go out and do this. You don't have to be kowtowed into silence. And if enough people hit the streets, it becomes impossible for this administration to do what it wants to do. They did not call off the workplace ICE raids because all of a sudden they heard from farm owners and hotel leisure business owners that it was going to hurt them. They knew that. That's why they backed them on the H-1B visas. They backed off on that because they knew this is going to create too much chaos. It's going to create too much chaos. People are going to be in the streets too much. It's going to affect transportation. It's going to affect economics. It's going to put strain on the government resources in terms of policing people, even when we don't have to send in the National Guard or have to, even when we choose not to. And if we do choose to really police them in this way, what are we going to send? We're going to send the entire military into every city every week. That can't happen. And so, yeah, it does do some good just being out there, And I think at a certain point, you have to just say, you know what? This is not an exercise in permanent coalition building. This is an exercise in just flooding the zone. That's what the right wing does. Well, you think they love each other over there? You got people over there who really have very, very deep and vicious disagreements with each other, as evidenced by the current MAGA meltdown. But you know what? They tolerate each other because they need each other in numbers. And I think for that reason, I thought what Jason said was important there. It's like, look, I'm not going to trash these protests. I'm just going to understand they are what they are and the limitations of them. But at the same time, you have to understand that, that is not the revolution out in the streets there.
Sure. We talked about this when we covered the Tesla protests, because I'm sitting there and I'm covering them, and I know that there is a coalition to be had of working class people. And every single time I interview somebody at the Tesla protests, and they say, yeah, well, looking to the future, I see AOC is a great leader, and Hakeem Jeffries. I just cringe and die a little inside, because I'm just saying, we're never getting people back this way. Even looking at, at the end of the rally, which is what I caught in New York, you had more dedicated activists, more, the libs were already at Italy by then.
Right.
So, you had the more hardcore activists remained and were still speaking. But even so, there has been such a systematic destruction of a blue collar New Deal style left that it virtually doesn't exist anymore. Even when you get like your real radical leftists, it's very much a post-60s new left vision of what that means. It's still very concerned with culture. It's still very concerned with issues that the average person, the average working person, honestly ranges from openly hostile to not giving a fuck about it. The Irishman, which no, that was that what it was called? The terrible Martin Scorsese thing.
Yeah, the new movie, yeah.
Yeah, The Irishman. All right, so I thought the movie sucked, but something that I found really interesting was he recreated a Teamster rally, and I'm assuming they went off transcripts because it was supposed to be a historical rally, right? I mean, they went off looking at the footage. These guys sound like fucking Karl Marx, man. Like you look at how these labor union organizers used to speak about capital and bosses and labor. That is completely lacking, and that's by design. And there is absolutely no way you're getting any meaningful left movement in this country without winning them back. And this is where the issue with trying to have a dialogue with MAGA comes in. You'll get people say, oh, well, no red-brown alliance. It's not even about that, man. You have people who have been systematically, in my opinion, psyoped into hating their own class and hating the language of class. You gotta have that conversation, man, because I'm sorry, like as well-intentioned as what was left at the end of that march might have been, these are not people who are going to be able to persuade the Amazon warehouse workers. They're just not. You need Chris Smalls, man. You need many more people like that representing it. I agree with what you're saying. Like, yes, you need the bodies in the streets. Why are Bernie and AOC getting these crowds? Because the libs are showing up. The libs who never showed up for them before are showing up. That's why they're getting 30,000 people when they go someplace. Like, yeah, man, you need them to disrupt the machinery. You do. But in terms of longer term coalition building, wow, man, we got a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do.
Yeah, I would also add to that, you're also not going to be able to organize workers with people who insist that there is a white genocide in South Africa and have a meltdown when you tell them that there isn't, or people who support workplace raids by ICE. I mean, this is a situation where, look, the bottom line is, if you didn't have those crowds in LA over these past few days, ICE would still be raiding workplaces. That's just a fact.
Yeah,
that's just an absolute fact.
Yeah,
and so whoever was out there served a purpose in being out there.
I
now
agree.
there were probably a lot of blue hairs out there. You know what?
Yes, there are.
Whatever. The bottom line is, you would not have ICE stand down and call off the workplace raids if those crowds weren't as big as they were. If everyone in that, if the only people who showed up were the people who were like based enough to subscribe to our show, there wouldn't have been nearly as many of them, and there wouldn't have been nearly enough
There would
of
have
them.
been more.
Yeah, right. Exactly. There wouldn't have been nearly enough of them necessary to force that policy change. That's just a fact. That is just a fact. So if you're happy that workplaces are not being raided by ICE, you have to tip your hat to everybody who showed up at those rallies, right? And that's just the bottom line. And so I think at a certain point, you have to kind of step outside your online silo and think, you know what, don't make the cringe the enemy of the good. Like, yeah, there's going to be people out there who are cringe. You don't think MAGA thinks each other are cringe? You don't think these people have deep disagreements with each other? Just look at Laura Loomer and fucking Ian Carroll going at it. They obviously can't stand each other. You know what?
Right.
They got together when it counted. That's how they fucking won. Right. And so that's what you have to do here. Now, I'm not talking about doing this in the electoral space. I'm talking about when you're organizing actions, you need bodies in the streets.
Sure.
And people who are willing to be out there, I think deserve some credit for being out there. And the other stuff, you work that out at a future time, or you compartmentalize that in ways that are necessary to achieve the current objective. We started out the show talking about, hey, listen, we all need to set these differences aside and focus on no war with Iran. That's the goal right now. I don't care who you are. I don't care whether you like trans people in sports or not. If Seattle wants it, knock yourself out. If Tuscaloosa doesn't, knock yourself out. Doesn't matter to me. I don't care. That's not a national issue. That has no place in national political discourse. This is about stopping the war with Iran. This is about getting the administration to back down on, yes, an authoritarian rampage. We need to get ICE out of the farmer fields. Yes, we do need that. We do need that. And they've proven that they are responsive to certain pressures because they have to be. They have to be if the pressure is big enough. If it's big enough.
Both things are true.
Of course,
both things are true. Like, yes, you need all these bodies in the street. Long term, we know it's the sensibility of these libs that got us here in the first place. So there's both. Yeah, like you need everybody out there that you can get. But if you don't want to end up here again, these people, we need to figure out a way to deal with the fact that you cannot make a working class coalition with these people. They hate fucking workers. We know that. When you really sit down and talk to them, they don't like working people. So there's both. Like, yeah, you need them now, but you can't get it twisted. You got to remember who these people are.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. All right. Katerina says, since independents are the biggest voting bloc now, what is the best way to organize right now? Well, I think we've talked about that. I mean, I think you have to pick these issues that transcend a lot of the differences you have, like no war with Iran. That's the most urgent one. Sparky says, I think it's been decades since chanting death to America was in fashion in Iran. Maybe back in fashion soon, if not already. Your boy Hannity makes out like it's still 1979. Yep, no, they are quite pathetic. Knew Hannity when he lived in Atlanta. Oh, really? He made it through hard work and focus, but he's never had an original thought in his life. Plus, he's dumber than a sack full of hammers.
That's what everyone says about him.
That's what everybody says, yeah. Alex Das Lieb, thanks for the $9.99. Trump seemed to almost doze off once in his own parade. I think he's going to retry with the 4th of July. No, the pitiful labored last breaths of a dying empire. Good one. Marvin Vargas says, did Israel have a special seat at the parade? Yeah, I don't think they needed any special seats. I think there was a lot of open room. I think everybody kind of had to pick where they wanted. Fat so not so fat says apparently they had Craigslist ads to fill up seats in the parade. Wouldn't surprise me. Omar Barovic. Let's see here. Where is that? Omar. What happened here? There it is. This parade reminds me of the 1992 Yugoslav army driving through my village. Me and my brother, so excited, waving to them just to find out a couple days after they're here to exterminate us. Funny. Brad Gilbert, host a military parade and need pew-proof glass. Yeah, well, they're doing that everywhere now. Alex Das leaves $6 million in 1973 is worth $43.5 million in 2025. His birthday parade cost us one cybernetic Steve Austin. Thank you. Sparky, thanks for the $10. It's good that Russian and Iranian leadership have long known not to pay any mind to what President Trump says. Otherwise, they'd get pissed enough to cloud their judgment. Artie Blarty Fart Blast, thanks for the $8. A military parade was a Marvel movie produced by Trump. Appreciate that. Sparky says in 1492, the Ottoman Empire sent ships to rescue Jews from the Spanish Inquisition. Contrary to popular belief, Jews and Muslims have not been fighting each other for thousands of years. That's right. David DeHart says Alex Jonstein is getting squirrely. He's always been this way. He has 2 Jewish kids from first wife. Fat Not So Fat says Iranian intelligence warned us in April 2001 about a terrorist attack involving planes, and apparently they're the bad guys. David Santucci says, hey, Russ, can I crash on your couch long enough to register to vote in New York City and vote for Mamdani? Good one.
What couch?
Yeah, there you go. Russ doesn't have a couch. Wasim Garani says there's a video where Lebanese is playing the saxophone while in the background missiles are flying and hitting. That's right. I saw that one. Sparky says President Trump better wake the F up. By the way, F Israel. Anytime someone says Israel's our only friend in the Middle East, I can't help but think before Israel we had no enemies in the Middle East. U.S. missionary John Sheehan. Brad Gilbert says flyers are made with Sharpie equals false flyer event. Good one. No Kings equals Occupy Wall Street plus Tea Party. About time. David Pennington says it is not possible to talk about the USS Liberty too much at this moment. Many people still believe the BS that it was an accident. It was not. The Uppies, thanks for the $5, says Jack Pasovich. Wife is super cute. Rest in peace. She should be with a cooler, hotter, and less bootlicking man than him. They call me Rex. Thank you for the $2. All Medicaid info is transferred to DHS and ICE. And GTNPB, thanks for the $10, says Trump and the world knows the USA is the second most hated country in the world right now. He's just trying to make us number one. Thank you very much for that. All right, folks, you can head over to dudissidents.com/rumble. We still have more show to do on what we promised would be an epic evening of content that will continue. After a 5-minute intermission, we have Rumble rants. We will read those all on the Rumble side. But right now, we are going to take a quick break while you guys all head over to Rumble. Please join us for the remainder of the show. We have lots more to cover via Israel and Iran. So make sure you head over there right now. DoDissidents.com/Rumble. For those who are not joining us for the rest of the show, we'll see you on Jimmy Dore tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern, with Feroz Sidwa, the heroic Gaza doctor. We're going to be interviewing him at 6 p.m. Eastern on the Jimmy Dore Show tomorrow. That's if you can't stay up with us, but you got to stay up with us. We got a lot of great stuff that we're getting into in just 5 minutes. So until then, thanks very much for spending the evening with us. Be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.